But yeah, man, I'm not going to lie to you, right? I had a family member come over from America, and they said, Ronan, the parking spaces are bigger. The food, like you, when you go and buy like a Snickers or a Mars bar, it's bigger. Like everything is
No,
bigger.
not from what you showed me. Those ones that you showed me, they're like square. Like the candy bars we have are like shaped like rectangular. Like the ones you showed me were like Wonka bars. Like with I was expecting to see a
But they're
golden
thin.
ticket.
They're
Oh,
thin.
they're thin. Okay.
They're really thin. Um, but man, it's just everything seems to be bigger in America, like to the point where it's like the chemicals that you put in the food. I know it's not obviously you're not putting the chemicals in, but the chemicals that are put into the food is just absolutely bonkers, man. Like over here, as I said, we were talking about this before we went live. The wheat over here, like the porridge that you would have, it has just like porridge, oats, a bit of sugar. Like
Mhm.
over there,
Like regular ingredients that you're
you're
supposed to eat.
you're
Not
banging in like a kilo of sugar into fucking one tiny little piece of porridge, and it's like, man, how
yes.
why would you do that to the kids? Why would you
I
do that?
know, right. They don't have any kind of protection in place, They like, uh, you know, you can get, um, like you were saying, a Snickers bar or some kind of candy bar, right? It's got so many, preservatives and, chemicals in it that it literally will not decay. You
Well,
know
that's one of the things that they were saying, well, the American foods will last you like 2 months longer
But
than
that's
what the
not good. It's
yeah.
not good.
Over here things just go off really quick. Like I've got to the point now, Sean, right, where I'll just eat. I don't care if something's like 2 days out of date. If it's meat
No.
and it
Right, if
smells
it's
off, I'll not eat it. But if like there's bread and there's mold, like the other day there was no bread in the house, and I got a carton of, or sorry, a little bag of bread, and there was a little bit of mold on it, and I went, you know what, fuck it. I pulled off the blue mold, I toasted it, and I'm still alive. I'm still here alive.
right. I
So do you know what I
mean,
mean?
as long as it's not like black mold. I mean, not all mold. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
penicillin is made out of mold. So, I mean, I'm allergic to penicillin, so it could probably kill me, but,
Shit, one
you
man.
know,
Imagine being allergic to penicillin. Like
I
is
am.
is penicillin? Is that the one that's like an? I got a drip one time of like I think it was penicillin, and it was amazing. Like I'm not joking. It wasn't high or anything. It wasn't like cocodamols
It's
or
an
oxys.
antibiotic.
It's an antibiotic, is it?
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
that what it was? Yeah, maybe it
Mhm.
was a different thing. Maybe
Yeah,
it
you
was.
must be thinking of something else. You must be thinking of like psilocybin or something like that.
Gee, psilocybin, it wasn't off my tits, man. I would have been sitting there just completely skyrocketing, man. Here, man, I have to say this, right? I want to tell you a crazy story, right? Before we start off this podcast. And guys, if you're watching after the fact, remember to smash the like button, subscribe and hit that notification bell and like the video. Leave a comment and tell me what you think. And sure. But listen, I want to tell you this story, right? So it was 2002. No, 2004, and I'm sitting in a bar. I've got my school uniform on, and
Mhm.
I'm in a bar. No, it didn't have a school uniform. This was actually, it was in tech, so it was in my normal clothes. And this guy comes up to me and says, "Here, man, do you want to smoke of this weed?" And I says, "Yeah, are you going to smoke it in the pipe?" And he says, "Yeah." I goes, "Yeah, no sweat." So he takes me over to the pool table, and we're having a liquid lunch, and I take a blast of this pipe, right? And it was salvia. I don't know if you've ever heard of salvia.
Salvia.
Right. Well, it's an extreme hallucinogenic, so it's like 100 times more stronger than acid and
Salvia.
psilocybin. But it only lasts for 10 minutes. So you're sitting
Oh,
in
wow.
space for 10 minutes. So I blast this, right?
Is it
And
like is it an inhalant or how do
yeah.
you
So it's a leaf. It's a leaf. It's called salvia, and
Oh, I know what you're talking about. I know exactly what you're talking about now. Over here it's called K2.
K2. Well, I think they call it. This came from America. I'm sure. it was called Salvia because it said Salvia and then it had a little like United
Yeah,
States logo.
that's the real name for it. But like how okay, if
Man,
you have heroin, but you don't really like go up to somebody and say, hey man, do you have any heroin? You call it like smack or dope or whatever. Just like
yeah.
that salvia is, I think the street name for it was K2, and because when I was locked up, people were getting that easily. I mean, I think they also call it like bath salts and stuff like that.
No, this wasn't, but mate, this was a plant. This was came from the ground. This was Mother Earth giving us some space rocket shit. This was a plant. I seen it.
Oh, okay. So
This
it's
was a
not. So
plant.
this is something different then.
This was not synthetic. It was a plant. Because I seen the leaf version and then I seen it crushed up, and I got the 40 strength, which was the highest strength at the time, right?
So
So
you
it take
get
a
it's legal.
so back then it was legal. Now it's not legal. It's illegal now to have. But I took the strongest puff of this bad boy, right? So I took one puff and I blew it out, and nothing really happened. And I was like, I don't know why I took a little puff, but he says, no, man. And he packed this bad boy out and he put like half the tube in it. And he's like, just blast that. So at this moment, I'm still thinking that this is weed. It's like, this is funny tasting weed, this shit, right? So I blast this pipe into me. I'm only, I think at the time I'm six. No, yeah, I'm 16. I'm near 17. It's coming to the summer. I'm in having a liquid lunch. I should be in school in tech,
Right.
but I'm not. I'm drinking, and man, next minute the room just dissolves. Right, it dissolves, and I'm like, the only way I can describe it to you, the pool table beside me is a spaceship, like an alien spaceship. I'm in this spaceship flying through space. I'm having like, I went through a whole life. Like, I went through like 3 months of like Rick and Morty going through different dimensions, seeing aliens. There was entities coming. There was like, I was having deep conversations with my friend, and then whoop, I come back into this crazy reality, and I can hardly even breathe. And I look around me and I'm on top of the pool table and everybody's laughing. And I just got this rush of depression over me. And I looked to the right and the guy says, you okay? He goes, man, that's the most salvia I've ever seen anybody like smoke at one go. He goes, what happened? I goes, man, I have been away for like 3 months. And he's like, man, this is so fucked up. Tell me all
So
about it. I was away. I had a life. I was on another planet. I was flying through space. And he's like, I've told him this. He's like, man, that seems fucked up. He goes, but I'm not. I goes, as much as I want to experience what you experienced, I am not taking that much salvia. He goes, we're only supposed to put a sprinkle. You had half the tube in one pipe. And see, to this day, I've never had an experience like that. The whole room just dissolved and I was in a completely different reality. It's, man, what an experience. Like,
I had something similar happen to me, but it was on MDA, and I thought I thought I was getting MDMA, and
well, that's what I thought it was, MDMA.
right, but they're two totally different drugs. MDA is like PCP, and I really didn't know that, right? So
Holy shit.
so it was a huge snowstorm, and I was addicted to heroin at the time. I mean, full on, like, a couple $100 a day. And this blizzard came in, and I didn't have anything ready, so I was like, I'm gonna have to go out in this blizzard and hopefully find somebody who's out and selling. So of course there was tons of people out, but they were all selling, bunk shit, like
Mm-hmm.
you know talcum powder, and so I'm looking for somebody I knew, because I wasn't about to just give my money to anybody. So I couldn't find anybody I recognized. The guy who was driving, he's like, I'm just going to take a chance with these guys up here. They look legit. I was like, yeah, they look real legit. They don't look any different than the guys down there that are going to rip you off. So he hands them his money and they run off into the snow. I'm like, all right, well, that was good. So I don't give anybody my money, but I don't get anything, and I'm starting to get sick. So I go to a friend's house, and he's like, "Oh, I have some ecstasy," and I was like, "All right, well, I guess whatever, I'll do that. It's better than being sick, I guess." So um, he gives it to me, and right away, it doesn't feel like ecstasy. It feels weird, like super weird.
You just know, don't you? That happened to me once.
Yeah,
You just know, like, what is this? What have you done to me? Like,
right. And you can't get it out of your body now, so what
you
I
may as
was,
well just go for the ride. You're here now.
yeah.
Let's go for the ride.
And dude, I was so around the time that the drug really kicks in, the dope sickness, the withdrawal kicks in. So not only am I experiencing a drug I've never done before, I'm in full on acute heroin withdrawal. So I'm like, oh my God, this is like hell. This has to be what hell is like. So I start imagining that there are these people like that are like right above me, like like I'm sort of like underwater, and they're like above me, and they're
Yeah,
looking
yeah.
down, talking to me, and I'm like, you know, you have to get me out of here, man. I'm not supposed to be here. This is like I'm supposed to be in a regular reality. What is this? And so it's like I'm talking to these people, and my friend is upstairs in her room. She's like, "Who are you talking to?" I'm like, "I don't know who they are. I don't even know what they are. I don't know if they're human or not." And so
Yeah, yeah.
I go digging around in the guest bathroom and found a whole bunch of Darvocet, which is like a low grade painkiller.
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah, yeah.
like, I just gobbled down the whole bottle. And finally that took away like the withdrawal, like the horrible feeling. So now I'm just left with this MDA, um dealing with this alien race that
Man, listen, I can so relate to that. Like, I can
and it's
so
a
relate to
blizzard outside. It's a
Yeah.
total dude, there's like 3 feet of snow, like a
I
meter
want
of
to give a shout.
snow.
I want to give a shout out to Solway and Emma. Emma's on the set tonight again. Listen, make those movies good, Emma. I'll be watching. I'll pay for it. I'll pay double for your movies, Emma, just to support you. Solway, as always, brother. It's good to see you. In. I have to tell. Before we get into Todd Kohlhepp, I have to tell another story, right? So, right. So this is one of the times I went really deep. Like, I mean, properly deep. I mean, this. I'm not even proud of what happened here, because this is. Do not do this. Actually, everything I'm about to say to you is not real. It's not real. This didn't happen, right? Do not do this. But this is like a tale from Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. So I had a cousin called Hugh. I'm not going to say a second name because the guy will be embarrassed. And we used to go deep, and it used to just be me and him. And he still lived with his mom and dad. This was going back about 22 years ago, maybe 25 years ago. Yeah, about 20 years ago. And his room was in the attic, and there was no windows, and it was a really tiny little small room. And that night we got no, sorry, we had 3 ecstasy pills each, and there were strong ones. There were the Bacardi, the yellow Bacardis, but no, sorry, there were blue PlayStations, right? But
They
blue,
had so many dumb.
no, but
Remember,
these were real.
they would
These
always have like the stamp of what like the
Yeah, but
Nikes.
these blue PlayStations were from Amsterdam, and they were speckled, so that means that they were extra juicy. That's all I'm going to say
Yeah, we
about
used
that,
to
right?
get the ones that looked like chocolate chip cookies. That those were the ones that were like, they had
Man,
some extra.
these put you in space, legitimate space. So where do you hear this here, right? So I had a 12 pack of beer each, which was Harp. With a bottle, we had a liter bottle of vodka between us. We had, I think it was 20 grams of Liberty Cap mushrooms, right? Which were the strongest mushrooms that I think they were Liberty Caps or Mexican. I think Liberty Caps. We had 4 tabs of LSD, a bag of weed, and a big 60 whack of hash of pollen. And I'm
These are a
sure we had,
lot of party
right.
favors.
No, this was good. This was between two people. This is two people, right? This is only two people. So we're playing GTA. I'm drinking a couple of harp. We neck a couple of the LSD tabs, and we take two blue PlayStations back
So
to
you're
back.
candy flipping.
Candy flipping. So, and then we drink a liter of, sorry, we drink a half a liter of vodka within, I would say, the space of half an hour between us. We just start necking this shit, right? We take another tab, another blue PlayStation, and then we start smoking weed. And then we'll go on to we'll have a big, massive spliff off the dope, off the hash, of the pollen.
It sounds like some train spotting shit.
Right. So this is the weird part. We don't get high. None of us get high. So I'm looking at Hugh, and I'm going, Hugh, can you feel anything, mate? And he's looking at me, and he's like, no, I'm actually quite sober here. And I'm like, this is so strange. I goes, what is it like at this point? We've took 3 blue PlayStations, which is ecstasy, the strongest ecstasy at the time. We've took 2 tabs of LSD, and then, yes, that's what it was. At the end, we then ate 4 grams of magic mushrooms, Liberty Caps, in a brew. And did we eat it? No, sorry, we drank that one in a brew, or I think it was on a pizza. I do not know. I think that one was a brew because it was so long ago. I think we brewed that, and still nothing, absolutely nothing. So we're sitting there, and hours went by. We're not stoned. We're not drunk. We're not tripping. We're not dancing. We're actually getting a little bit depressed, right? So my mate comes up and he goes, listen, I've got something here. It's called, I think it's the key. He goes, I'm going to call it the key. And I goes, I know this is going to blast us into outer space. And I goes, what is it? He goes, look, I don't like doing it, but I think this will help, even if we just do a little bit. So I'm like, right, okay, right, no worries. So he pulls out from behind his back a tin of gas, like lighter fluid, like gas. And I'm like, man, I don't know if I should do this because there's a lot in our system. He goes, look, it's all fighting. It's all
what is it, like ether? Or I mean,
so like you know the way you'd fill up like lighter, you know, that you have a lighter.
Like,
a lighter
okay.
The gas,
so
the gas inside the lighter.
Yeah,
there was a tin. He had a tin.
butane.
Yeah, butane. He had a tin to refill his lighters, and he's like, "Look," I goes, "Man, I don't like that because you know people like do that behind the bins in school and stuff, and I don't really like doing that. That's not really me." He's like, "Look, we'll just take a little bump, right? A little bump of this here, and trust me." And I went, "Right, okay, right." So he takes it first. Boom. Holds it in. I take it. I go. And then I blow out after about 10 seconds ago. And the room just went. And all I can tell you, I have to describe this to you fully, right? He's got a Tupac poster sitting on his roof, like this here, like West Side. It comes out to me and goes, and it's staring at me in the face, and I'm going, Hugh, what the fuck's going on? Then next minute the room dissolves, and do you ever see like you're in space and it's like everything's a grid, like there's like lines going through everything.
I know.
Put your hand through the wall. Well, I'm putting my hand through the wall, and then all of a sudden the floor raises to my eyes. My body disappears, and this part of my head turns into a mouse. I've got a tail. I've got a tail in the back of my head. My friend turns into a tail. We're running about the room like mice, right? Now, that lasted for about 10, 15 minutes. I woke up from that. I look across the room. My mate is like rocking back and forward like he's in a mental institute. I look at the clock.
Is he still a mouse?
No. This is when I'm starting to come through a little bit.
Oh, okay.
So I thought it was like 15 minutes of like a mad, intense trip. So I look at him. He's fucked up. I look at the clock. Whenever that happened to us, it was round about, say, about 11 o'clock at night. I look at the clock. It's now 4:30 in the morning. So what I thought was 15 minutes was hours. So I'm sitting like rubbered out of my head for hours, pretending I'm a mouse in some fucking box room in an attic in the middle of nowhere. This geezer lived in the sticks. So I wake him up like, Hugh, this is fucked up, man. I think like this is going to put us in the mental institute. So we'll go downstairs. Now we're in full blown LSD. Everything's gone. The X is out of our system. The LSD is taken over, and the magic mushroom. So remember, we've got 2 tabs of Mr. Men in our system. That's the strongest shit you can take, and we've got 4 grams of magic mushrooms, Liberty caps in our system. We go outside, man, in the middle of the summer. The grass is coming up my legs, up my back. I'm becoming the grass. You know, Groot from fucking Guardians of the Galaxy. I
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
turn into a version of him. I'm now one with Mother Nature, and I'm rolling about the grass like a fucking like I'm a
Like Groot.
moonbeam,
You're
like I'm a
Groot.
fucking Groot. And we come back in. This is the weird part. We go upstairs. I actually fall asleep, and I had the strangest dreams. Obviously, woke up, and there's a ghost sitting on the wall beside me, like this scary face. So I wake him up. I freak out, shit myself. We go downstairs. Hugh's mum and dad are back, and we go downstairs, and we're sitting at the table and we're eating breakfast. And strangely, we don't even have a hangover. It's like I'm looking at him, going, "Mate, are you okay?" He's like, "Yeah." He goes, "I'm not even high anymore." And I'm like, "Neither am I, but I don't even have a hangover. I feel like I've had 12 hours of sleep. I don't even have baggy eyes. What is the crack with this here?" And then we just didn't get a hangover. Went home, and to this day, that was the most fucked up trip I've ever had in my whole entire life. Honestly, I cannot think of anything more stranger.
I think maybe all of the different drugs were interacting with one another. You know what I mean? Like I was
Speckled means laced with heroin, so it was off my chops and bloody smack.
yeah. Well, I mean, I was a huge proponent of mixing drugs. You know, I mean, especially heroin and cocaine. I mean, those um, you know, that was the pinnacle of getting high for me was if I could get some good dope and coke, and then
You look
you
quite
know,
proud about that. This is the way you said this. You went. It's always good when you get some good dope and coke. it's,
well,
it's, it's like it's like fucking hell, man. Yeah,
it's
no,
an
listen.
accomplishment over here because I'm telling you, it's not people don't play fair when you're out there um at that level of the game. People don't play fair. You have to have a trustworthy connection where you can go to them and say, "Hey, because I'm going into the worst cities and I mean the worst neighborhoods in Baltimore City with pockets full of money." And everybody knows that me and my cousin are coming to throw down. We're not coming to just get like one or two and that's that. We're coming.
I heard Matt Rife, the comedian, talk about Baltimore the other day. I was watching him, and he was saying like Baltimore is the most fucked up city in the whole world. He goes, you meet
I
the
can
nicest.
believe that.
He says you meet the nicest people in Baltimore, but also at the same time, you got to watch your back with those motherfuckers. And he was like, it's a beautiful place. He goes, but it's the only place like it's like it's very hard how it's very weird how he described it.
It's
But he's like,
filthy. There's
I was I
there's
was looking at it. I
nothing.
was going, that's where Sean's from. Sean is
Yeah.
from fucking Baltimore. This is fucked up. And he was talking about it, saying like he walked into a restaurant and the lady, the waiter, or sorry, the waitress had a black eye, and everybody knew it's because her boyfriend punched her in the eye, and everybody felt sorry for her. And it was just like, but this is Baltimore. This is what happens in Baltimore.
Yeah. It's a violent place, man. It's a seriously violent place. It's a small city.
Yeah.
It's small. It's not like New York or not even Philly, I mean, I've been all over the place in America, and I'll tell you, the only place I've ever been that matches Baltimore for sheer filthiness is Jacksonville, Florida. That to me was like the armpit of hell. I would never ever intentionally go back to Jacksonville, Florida.
Do you know what? Right, we're going to do a live stream. Me and Sean are just going to do a live stream talking about all the craziness around the world. We're going.
Mhm.
I'll do one for like next Tuesday or something because we need to get into Todd right now. So
Yeah.
because I wanna talk about Baltimore. I like speaking about them things, and I feel that this is going to go that way. So for the
Oh,
audience,
I would go I would do a live in Baltimore so you can see exactly what I'm talking about.
yeah, man, that's what we want right there. We don't want to put our co-host and basically the owner to the Serial Killing Minds channel. We don't want to put him in any harm's way because we need you, Sean. We need you alive and well, for the next good load of years yet. So we'll keep you safe. We're not going to do that to you. But listen, if I ever come over to America, we'll definitely do something like that. That would be pretty cool to experience that. I listen, man. I have to just say this before we get into Todd here. I cannot affiliate myself with people that are high flyers. I'm a bit like Johnny Cash in that way. I'm like, no matter where I am in life, I always will resonate with the down and out. I'm not saying Baltimore's like that. I'm not saying you're like that, but I'm
No,
saying
I agree with you. I totally agree with you.
do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I I'm the
Not
first.
scum. I'm not saying scum. I don't resonate
No,
with scum, but I resonate with, like, for instance,
I
like what do you call that place? There's a place in America I want to go to. It's New Orleans,
mhm.
because the music, the culture, the black
Yeah,
soul that
yeah.
they have down there. The way everything is. That's, to
Mhm,
me, that's what America is to me. Baltimore's America. Philly, the bad places in L.A. MacArthur Park, New York, Bronx. That's the type of shit I'm into. I wouldn't go to New York, no disrespect, but the first place I wouldn't want to go to is the Trade Center, where the Trade Center fell, because to me, okay, that's a thing that's happened in the past, but I want to go to the Bronx. I want to see the Hassan Campbells, the fucking where Biggie was flying about. I want to go to see where Tupac was flying about, and you know, these are the places that this is where you're going to get the real places of the world, not in these high flying buildings that's full of suits, that
no.
capitalistic pigs that just want to extract your money. I want to see real America. Do you know what I mean? I've always
Yeah,
resonated with that.
yeah. That's I mean, I've lived in those places my whole life. I was born in Baltimore. I love Baltimore for all the reasons that most people would probably be afraid of it or hate it. To me, since I moved out of the city, I haven't been back for a while, but I went back about 2 weeks ago, and when you go there, there's a certain feeling like no other place. I mean, New York has its own feel, Philly, DC, but Baltimore is just its own weird little. I mean, you can understand why Edgar Allan Poe lived here for a short while. It has a certain vibe to it that if you turn the wrong corner, that could be your last mistake.
Sorry, I'm listening to you, Sean. What I was doing is I'm actually just Holly Provençals came into the chat, and I just want to I sent her a link. I have to get you two guys connected. Um, Give me a wee second here. I'm going to just say, Holly, you can jump on. I sent you a link into the chat there. For some reason, it's not letting me comment through my laptop. But Holly, if you want to jump on, I've just put the link into the live chat. Let me see. Is this on Hold and Official too? Let me just see if this is if I'm live on Hold and Official. I am. So the link is in the live chat and Hold and Official too. Let me see. That was definitely Holly that wrote there. Yeah, Holly must be on the other channel, Serial Killing Minds channel. So yeah, Holly, if you're getting this, jump on. You're more than welcome. I suppose what we'll do now, we'll get into Todd now. So Todd, how do you say a second name? Todd Kohlhepp.
Kohlhepp.
Kohlhepp. So explain to the audience, because he's quite a strange one. He's also he's a grapist. we'll call him, he's a rapist, right? He's a rapist, but he's also a serial killer.
Yeah,
Now, where did Todd come from, and what was his early life? How did he grow up before the serial killing? How was he? Where did he grow up? And
he.
how did he get into the serial killing? Is there any standout moments in his childhood
Oh
to,
yeah,
to
yeah.
why he done what he done?
Yeah, he was a problematic child from, the beginning. He he was kind of abandoned by his biological father, and his mother tried to raise him. She hooked up with another guy, married him, and he kind of he did legally adopt Todd as as his stepson. And Todd was the kind of kid who, if he didn't like something that his mom bought for him, he didn't say, well, I don't like this. He would smash it, to bits. Like, I'm talking about furniture. She bought him a goldfish, and he dumped bleach in the tank and watched the fish die. And when she asked him why he did it, he said because he wanted a gerbil. So instead of saying, I don't want this goldfish, can you take it away? He dumps bleach in and, watches it suffer and die. And, he likes that, so he definitely was, I think, we talked before about the McDonald hierarchy, of the triad of bedwetting, fire starting, and animal abuse. And Todd was a serious animal abuser. He would take his BB gun and shoot squirrels, birds, cats. He was a very cruel kid. There wasn't anything nice about him. He didn't really have many friends. He wasn't like, I guess, like a loner or isolationist or whatever, but he wasn't well liked. He wasn't like a pariah, but he wasn't like, he wasn't the guy who was invited to all the parties, or the guy that was going to get, all the dates and things of that nature. So when he turns 14, he or 15, he has a neighbor friend who is I guess she's one of the little girls in the neighborhood that were cute or whatever. So she didn't want anything like to do with Todd other than to be friends. So he was permanently relegated to the friend zone, and that
So
was
was he a bit of was he like an incel, like involuntary celibate sort of?
no. He well, involuntarily, I guess. Yeah, I guess you could say that. I mean, he wasn't getting any dates, or there weren't any girls that were certainly willing to offer themselves up to him sexually. He was as you can see in the pictures, he's a pretty fat guy. He's a pretty large guy, but he wasn't always.
Yeah, but like
you know
some women are into that, like the like big papa coming in, with the big arms to look after the women. Like, I mean, he's
uh,
not an. People would say that somebody like horrible people will say, "Oh, he's ugly," but he's actually not
he's
ugly.
not
Like,
he's not like, okay,
do you know?
you can
Do you know what I mean?
see, yeah, you can see that he's not like, a horrible monster looking guy. He looks like an everyday Joe,
Yeah, yeah.
but he looked more like an everyday Joe before he put on all the weight. He was, well, yeah, this is getting ahead of the story right now. Okay. So get back to 15-year-old Todd. He's, he's kind of a chubby little kid, but he's not like obese. But he's not like the guy that all the girls are, you know, after. So anyway, he knows that this girl is going to be home alone, and he goes over. He uh I mean, see the picture where he's in the 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 suit. He
Hmm.
just looks like that's when he was a real estate agent.
Yeah, like he's not a bad looking guy. Like there's no like I'm not looking at that going right. This guy is a bad looking guy. Like this guy doesn't look like he should be, or he was pushed to be a rapist. Like, do you know what I mean? Like he could. There's plenty of
Yeah,
women that would want a
right,
guy like
yeah,
that.
sure.
So it's so strange.
Well, okay, so anyway, he gets this girl, um gets in the house with her, um forces himself on her, ties her up, handcuffs her to the bed. um he sexually assaults her.
This is when he's
um
15,
yeah,
right?
sodomizes her, which is, to me, that's pretty psychotic for someone that
Explaining what
age. Well,
explain what
that
sodomization is.
he raped her anally, and then finished up with traditional penetration.
So he was a dirty bastard then. He was a
Yes.
dirty bastard. We have one of them that lives in Carlisle over in England, and this guy has a history of doing. I'm not saying he's that. He's not a serial killer, but the stories I've heard about this geezer in Carlisle is that he likes to do. He's into sodomizing women in that way.
Yeah. So
So like he's a dirty, dirty bastard doing that to women. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, it's one. It's a terrible, filthy, disease spreading thing to do. And especially, he's not using any sort of condoms or anything like that. So he says, now the girl has younger siblings, and he says, "I'm gonna leave. I'm going to let you go. I'm going to untie you. Um, Now, if you call the police, I'm going to kill your siblings." And so he leaves. Her siblings come home, and they see that she's, disheveled, uh, you know, just been through hell. And she tells them what happened immediately, doesn't even think twice about not telling. So the police come to Todd's house, they arrest him. Uh, he goes, he gets, in America, I don't know if this is the same over there, but if you're charged with a crime that is especially heinous, and you're a minor, it can be bumped up to adult court, and you can be charged as an adult and face adult sentences.
And
And
rightly so, man, and rightly
yeah,
so.
yeah, and so that's what happened. So he faces, um, you know, um, sexual assault charges, kidnapping charges, and he's found guilty on all of them. And he gets um a stiff sentence. I believe it was 25 years, if I'm not mistaken. But he goes in, he he gets a degree, so he puts his time to use. He's a master manipulator, for one. He's an absolute salesman. So he goes in, comes out with his degree as a graphic designer, and he does that for a while. He doesn't like the amount of money he's making. He wants to make more, so he gets his real estate license to sell real estate, and he lies on his license application about, because he's a registered sex offender. So he doesn't say that, which is illegal. So he gets his real estate license, and eventually he becomes so such a good real estate agent. He starts his own business, and he he's doing great. He's making money. He's living the good life in now he's living in South Carolina. I skipped over a few things. When he was a child, I said he was adopted by his stepfather. Well, Todd wanted to go and live with his biological father. He hadn't seen him in 15 years. So when he sees him, he's like, this is great. I'm living with my dad, but dad is more interested in chasing skirts around. He's interested in, bringing different women home. He's really ignoring.
Is this before the first rape?
Yes. That's why. That's why I went back. That's why I went back to this.
It's sort of like he's seeing this toxic environment towards women.
Yes.
He's probably just seeing women as like an object that he
absolutely
that he can get his pleasure from, basically.
Absolutely. So, that's why I wanted to go back and put that in there, because I didn't want it to. He seemed like he just had a head full of bad wiring for no reason. So his dad sends him back to his mother. His mother says, "No, I don't want you back here." So now, you're looking at a kid. He's like 15. He has nowhere to go.
Rejectment. He's getting rejected.
Absolute abandonment, right?
Abandonment,
so obviously, I completely relate to him in that. You didn't
turn out to be a serial killer, though, Sean. You went through the same trials and tribulations as most of these serial killers went through as a child, but you never. You see, you had a choice, and this is the key. And I don't mean to interrupt you, but you didn't become a serial killer. You knew the difference between right and wrong, and that's the key. That's the difference between a good person and a bad person, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I didn't become a serial killer. But the abandonment resonates with me. That is an issue that, even now, it still affects my life every day. There'll be, not to make this about me, but there will be a moment in time and I'll think, my own mother didn't want me, so I must be as fucked up as you can be, because whose own mother, doesn't want them.
Yeah, but you still had the choice, and I have to introduce Holly Provenzel. Holly, have you been sitting there for a long time? Because I've been trying to get my charge in. Or are you just in, or have you been sitting there for a long time?
Just about a minute.
Oh, that's okay. As long as you weren't sitting there for too long, because sometimes I don't notice at the bottom. Holly, I hope you're keeping well. Thank you for joining us tonight. We're doing a live stream on Saturday night. We actually tried to do one on TikTok before, but it didn't really work out. But Sean, I would like you to meet Holly. Holly, I would like you to meet Sean. Sean is the serial killer expert, Holly, that I was telling you about. He speaks to serial killers inside the prison. And Holly is not just a Scientology expert, but she basically is an expert in the world of cults. She knows she can break, but her specialty would be Scientology. So Holly will be joining us on a few live streams on Thursdays and whenever we do it. So yeah, we're talking about Todd Kohlhepp. Holly, do you know much about Todd?
Not really, so I'm all ears.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so we've got up to the point. He's 15 years of age. He's just committed his first rape. He's had a bit of a bad childhood, but how he commits this rape is he ties the lady up and he sodomizes.
No. She's younger than him. She's 13. So
He's a yeah, pedo like.
well, he's only 15. So
But yeah,
it's
in those
kind of
like
hard to call
between
him a
15
pedophile.
between 15 and 13, there's a massive jump because I remember being 15 looking at like
Yeah.
13-year-olds like I'm going like they're not even the same thing. It's like 10 years difference if you're well. I get what you're saying though. He's technically not, but
Right.
yeah. So he's done this to this 13-year-old, and you were explaining about his what you were. Sorry, before I interrupted you. What were you saying?
Well, his I said he went to live with his biological father, and he thought that would be the greatest thing that could happen. Any son would, and I went through this myself. When I was being raised by my grandmother, my dad asked me to move in with him and my stepmom, and I thought it was going to be great, but it really wasn't. It was okay, I guess. He didn't really provide any sort of life lessons to me. Just let me run wild, and that I think that kind of started opened the door sort of to my drug use. But anyway, Todd, his dad was just negligent, didn't take him to school, didn't pick him up from school, didn't take an active role in his life. So he thought, okay, this didn't work out, I'm going back to my mom. And when he gets back to his mom's house, she says, "You're not welcome here. So I don't know what you're going to do." So,
Do you think that then? Do you think because of the abandonment issues and already having that in him to hurt animals at a young age, maybe borderline on the spectrum? Even though this whole thing to do with on the spectrum, everybody on the spectrum isn't going to turn out to be a serial killer, but it's like a recipe for disaster. He's a little bit withdrawn from the world. He's not the most popular. He's struggling with women, and he's got a toxic environment in regards to women, surrounded like the way his real father treats women. He just sees them as objects. His mother has so that now gives him the rage towards women. Would that be correct?
Yeah. That's exactly what I think. And jumping ahead a little bit, I talk to Todd on the regular basis, and he hasn't changed much. He's still, even though he's incarcerated, he's still very abrasive, very I mean, I'm not gonna lie, he says some funny shit. I mean, he definitely has a sense of humor. I mean, like I said, he's a manipulator, he's a talker. He's the type of guy who, if he's at a party, he's going to have a bunch of people around him listening to what he's saying. And that's how he became such a great real estate agent. He was selling, high-end residential and commercial property faster than anybody else at the agency he worked at. So he said, why work for someone else when I can start my own business? So he did. And he buys his own house on 100 acres of land in South Carolina. That's a lot of land. So he builds
What age was he when he buys this then?
Well, he already did his time, which was, I believe, he was incarcerated for 15 to 20 years. So he's in his early 30s at this
So
point.
yeah, so we jumped on just a tad there then.
Well, there wasn't much else to tell in that time because he was incarcerated. Like I said, the main point of that was he got a degree. He didn't, he wasn't a problem inmate. He wasn't violent in prison. He was, he didn't go in there and kill people. He didn't,
But he was incarcerated for the
for the rape of the 13-year-old, but he was
Is that- I mean-
charged as an adult, so he was incarcerated in an adult facility.
But even that's a long time, man, to be in prison for. I know he
Sure it
deserved it.
is, but
I mean,
some
was the
people get life for that same offense, and the reason why he didn't get life, I believe, is because of his age.
Yeah, so in America, maybe both of you can elaborate on this because you come from two separate states. Is rape is that the type of sentences that are handed out to like rapists?
Well, see, he also kidnapped her technically. So
there's kidnap, rape.
So what the kidnap charge became imprisonment or false imprisonment. Which is, that's one of the worst things you can do to a person. Imagine the psychological trauma that you're putting someone through. But
I'm just thinking to myself, though, you go through all that time in prison. What age is he when he gets out of prison?
He's like 31, I
so
believe.
He's 31 whenever he gets out of prison, right? He's still a young man.
Yeah.
Spending that time in prison, why would you go on then to kill women knowing that you're going to go back to prison? Why would you do that?
Well, he like I said, Todd is a master manipulator. He thought he could get away with it, and he wasn't the type of guy who was out there stalking and lurking about. He was getting his victims in broad daylight. Well, okay, here's how things escalated. While he's a real estate agent, he's making a lot of money. So he's buying, the things that people who all of a sudden have a lot of money buy, like expensive toys. So he wants to buy a motorcycle, like a high-end motorcycle. So he goes to this motorsports place, and it's kind of like the big motorsports place in South. I think it was in Columbia or Greenville, South Carolina. And so everybody knows this place. He goes there. The guys who own it, I guess they're like, I don't know, cool guys or whatever you want to call them. So Todd is definitely not, he doesn't fit that, like, tattooed, cool guy, goatee having, I guess, the
typical sort of meathead type of guy, like
yeah.
I get what you're saying. So then,
with the gelled, spiked up hair, and
I get that. So then, I'm still trying to get myself. So every time we do these, Sean, right? I try to put myself look through the eyes of these serial killers. I really try to put myself into their brain. And sometimes it gets dark, and sometimes it's just like, well, you can't even understand why they would do it. And this is the case where I'm thinking to myself, I can't even understand this situation because it had to be a darkness within for him to take the punishment to come out. And we're up to this part now where he's at. I mean, what was his first kill like?
That's what I'm getting to that one. But let me tell you, first of all, prison is not, it's called the correct division of corrections. No one is getting corrected. It's a warehouse. It's a warehouse for people who are treated like uh material. You're counted at one point of the day, and you're counted again later in the day, and you make sure those two numbers are the same and no one escaped, and that's as much correction as you're getting. If you want to sit around and not do anything and not take advantage of the few things that are provided, like um, some college courses or things of that nature, you have to take it upon yourself to do those things. They're not, you're not going to be corrected. You're going to be punished. You're going to be put in a cell, and it's up to you to make the most of it, or the least of it. It's up to you. If you want to get in there and run around and stab and kill and rape and do all that stuff, sure, you can do that. Or you can go in, keep your mouth shut, and read Stephen King books all day and come out the same person as you were when you went in. Or you can go in and do something constructive and try to change yourself.
And what one was Todd?
Todd went in and got a degree.
Very strange, man. It's very, very strange. Like, he goes into prison, he gets a degree, he tries to better himself, and this is the point.
But you have to look at it. You have to look at John Wayne Gacy. When he went to prison the first time, he ran the prison kitchen. He was a model inmate. These guys, serial killers don't generally go into prison and kill people. It just doesn't happen.
I'm not expecting like gang tattoos and joining a gang, but I'm like maybe a bit of rebellion, like a rebellious side to them, where they're like,
you're not going to find that. That's not
it's
a
like
serial
it's
killer.
scary though, because then that means possibly if you want to sort of analyze,
you're talking about somebody who's mentally ill as opposed to a straight up criminal. A criminal is going to be in that environment and loving it. That's like dumping a shark back in the ocean. It's going to be in its own environment. It's going to love it. It's going to run around, kill, stab, rob. I've seen it with my own eyes. Everybody does their own time differently, but more times than not, people are going to let the time do them, and they're going to go in, they're going to join a gang, they're going to, do something that they're going to regret for the rest of their lives and make matters worse. And Todd didn't do that. Jeffrey Dahmer didn't do that. John Wayne Gacy didn't do that. These guys are not the kind of guys that are going to go in and say, look at me, I'm a serial killer. Number one, most of the time they're going to be on protective custody.
It's a mental illness, though, Sean. It's a mental illness that can go undetected, and that's scary, because we could have serial killers in high-powered positions like politicians, CEOs, and if you think about it, they like to excel at things. So a lot of these people, yes, there's a lot of them that don't have a lot of success in their life, but if you look at a guy like Todd, he's driven to be good at whatever he does. He chooses the prison system to benefit himself instead of sort of to not benefit him, like join a gang and stuff. So he has that in him, but he's got this darkness, this mental illness. To me, that's scary. And if you want to apply that to real life, what are we talking about here? Could we have serial killers around us everywhere and we wouldn't even know?
Yes, we do. I mean, there are serial killers active in every state in the country. There are serial killers. My wife works at a hospital. There was a guy who was cutting off women's heads and hands.
I don't mean to. That's fucked up, mate.
And that's right in front of the hospital.
I'm not laughing at that shit, because that's my reaction, right? When you say that to me, I'm like, I automatically think to myself, why would anybody want to do that? What purpose? I know it's mental illness. I get
Mm-hmm.
the mental illness. Actually, I don't get the mental illness part because I'm not mentally ill like that. I'm not mentally ill at all. So, man, as a woman, like,
Mm-hmm.
you have to think to yourself, it's so dangerous out there. Not only do you have to put up with like just your bog standard fella who's maybe drunk
Yeah,
that could punch you and just a moment of madness and do damage, but you have to put
sure.
up with like like serial killers that are going to cut your head off, cut your limbs off, and like dump them outside of that to me is crazy, man. That is crazy. So
So yeah,
we're
but I mean, what are you gonna do? I mean,
yeah.
it's welcome to the jungle.
That's a good.
I mean, what are you
That's a
gonna
good
do?
question from Jamie Wilson. What was
Todd Todd
Kohlhepp?
suffer Todd suffers with rage disorder. That's it. He's not schizophrenic. Um he's not uh
Sexual perversions
yeah, well,
too? Like, I mean,
he's a sexual sadist. Yes, he is, Um but he doesn't suffer from depression or schizoaffective disorder or
wow.
schizophrenia. It's just pure rage disorder. It's pure psychopathy. He has no a conscience. He has no empathy. He has no ability to relate to another human being. He has no moral compass.
How do you communicate via letter or phone call?
Odd letter.
Letter.
Yeah.
And have you ever spoke to?
The only person I feel comfortable talking to on the phone is Haddon. I don't I did like with Dennis Rader and everybody else has just been letters. Certainly I would have talked to Sam Little on the phone, but he died before we got to that point. But I felt very comfortable speaking with him. He was, um,
Hayden
you
Clark,
know,
Jamie Wilson, Hayden Clark. Just replace that J with the H,
yeah,
and then you've got the yeah.
yeah,
That's it. That's it there.
yeah.
So then, do you want then to take us to his first
Okay,
kill?
yeah. So
Yeah.
he goes to the motorcycle motorsports store, and he wants to buy a motorcycle. He's not a proficient rider, so these guys are like kind of giving him the business, like, why do you want a motorcycle? You don't know what you're doing. You don't know how to they let him test ride it in a field next to the shop, and he's dropping it. He can't keep it up. He can't but he buys it anyway, and it gets stolen. So uh he goes back and buys another one. And so when he goes back to get the second one, they really give him the business. And he is the type of guy that does not like to be the butt of the joke. He likes to be in on the joke. He does not like to be have the joke at his expense. And these guys were really, really laying into him, telling him he's an idiot, he's a moron, he doesn't know what he's doing. And so Todd's like, okay, yeah, that's fine. You can think that. And so they're like, are you gonna let this one get stolen too? Or, are you gonna learn how to ride this one? And so he goes home and he thinks about it and thinks about it and thinks about it and thinks about it. And he's the type of guy that everything he bought on Amazon, he wrote a review about. And usually they were bad, and usually they were extremely sarcastic. So, you know, not being the kind of person in control of the sarcasm and being the subject of the sarcasm, that didn't work for Todd. So he goes home and he straps up in a big way. He puts um, he has suppressors, silencers, extra clips. He comes in and loaded for bear. Comes in through the back door. There's only 5 people that work there.
He harnesses his inner Terminator for this one.
Oh yeah, he goes full on Anatoliana Priyanka style.
If Holly doesn't know, we're going to be doing one about a serial killer called the Terminator, who literally just busts in through people's doors, armed to the teeth, kills the whole family, and then leaves.
And so
that's his nickname. So I just want to get Holly's reaction to that. Have you ever heard of the? Have you ever heard of the? Have you ever heard of the Terminator?
No.
Yeah, that's what I thought that it was like a fictional person, and then Sean says to me, "This is a real." But like he harnesses his inner Terminator for this.
Yeah.
I mean, so he cannot take a joke. So for instance, like
no.
I used to be like that as a kid, where I didn't know how to take certain humor, like the way being with the boys. He's this, he's that, but they don't actually mean any harm. But he actually takes this to heart, and he straps up. And he's going to take them out. So what happens next?
Well, he goes in through the back door. Like I said, there are 5 employees. It's really just the owner and his family and his best friend. So the owner, his best friend is the mechanic. His mother is kind of like the accountant and does like the payroll and everything. And I think there are 2 mechanics. And the guy who owns it is like, he's like the salesman and manager. So Todd comes in. First thing he does, comes through the back door, comes through the garage area, kills the mechanic, catches the mother in sort of a hallway and kills her, kills the other employee. And one of them who was supposed to be there that day wasn't. And the owner was coming into the building. So he killed him like halfway between his car and coming into the shop. And so the other guy who worked there, he's coming into work. And by this time, the place is, cordoned off. With crime scene tape, police are there. Everybody is like, this small town in South Carolina. This is huge. This is, helicopters, everything. But Todd is gone, and Todd is already.
At this moment, did they know that it was Todd, or are they still looking for a suspect?
No, Todd didn't get caught for this for years. Todd,
wow, that's some GTA shit, that isn't it? That's like I don't promote that, but that's some fucked up shit. Like the country that has the greatest forensics on planet Earth, the United States of America. This guy goes full GTA Terminator,
now
blows away multiple people,
right? But Todd, crazy, man. He went in full body armor, gloved down. He picked up all the shell casings.
He picked up all the shells. So hold on, has he got an automatic rifle?
No, he used an automatic on that.
So he's using what? Do you know what type of weapon he was using?
I do know, but I don't have.
Is it like but it's like it's to pick up all the casings.
It's
I mean, you're shooting at least.
He's using a dustpan and a broom to pick up casings. That's how much. And
this motherfucker didn't leave one casing behind.
No.
Wow, he's smart, man.
Yeah.
This guy is smart.
Yeah, and so he, like I said, he's already home and back to selling real estate at this time. So. This is before. Well,
don't worry about that, Sean. That's a question for afterwards. Don't worry about the comments. You just keep saying what you're saying.
Okay.
That's the next question.
So, he gets home. And like I said, this is before he bought the big 100-acre. This is he's living in a nice rental at this point. So he goes on to have his most success after this huge mass murder. So at this point he's a mass murderer at this point. He's not even a serial killer yet.
That's what I was going to say. So is he the first guy to be the first serial killer to also be a mass murderer and a serial rapist?
Well, yeah, if you put all three of them in, but
Like that's a badge. That's a criminal badge of, like, I'm not saying badge of honor, but badge of horror, right there. Serial rapist, mass murderer, and serial killer. Wow.
Yeah, because Anatoliana Priyanka was a mass murderer and serial killer, and there were a couple others who were mass murderers and serial killers, or spree killers, thrill killers, and serial killers. But Todd is definitely his own kind of monster. He's so he gets and he's living his life. He's watching the news reports, he's hearing about it, he's talking about it at work, like, wow, man, that's crazy. Somebody went nuts at the motorsports place. That's where
he's making small talk with his mates. Fuck that guy. Fuck that guy. He's crazy.
Yeah,
I wouldn't want to be that guy.
They're like, isn't that where you bought your motorcycle? He's like, yeah, but
yeah, fuck them. They were horrible. Yeah. They deserved it. The bastards. They made fun of me. So I hope that guy gets away with it. That's another level of psychopathy. And, like, for instance, just to put, like, I'm in the eyes of this guy now, right? I'm feeling what he's feeling, and what I'm feeling the rage, but also I'm going back into myself. And it was a couple of weeks ago. I got road rage with somebody, and we pulled up, and I got out of the car, and instantly as I got out of the car, I seen the guy's face, and I felt sympathy. Like, and then he obviously was a normal human being, and he had sympathy, and we both laughed. We got back into the car and we drove off, right? Just a bloke moment, right? So to have that, for two normal blokes to have that, a bit of rage, you get out. But to go one further, to blast all these people, get away with it, have the intelligence to dust all the evidence away, so you don't get caught.
He's not dumb. He's not dumb. He has
to actually speak about this to people as if it wasn't him. So he sort of has this sort of reality version of astral projection, where he can take himself out of his own body and go, right, that's not me anymore.
Well,
that's not me.
He's it's the reptile brain. It's fight or flight. You don't want to get captured. You don't want to. He's already been in prison once. He doesn't want to go back.
Guilt, Sean. He doesn't have guilt.
No serial killer does. No serial killer has. That's part of psychopathy. You don't have empathy. You don't have guilt. You don't have any of that. Wow. It's like you don't even know what another human being feels. You can't process feelings.
Sounds a bit like Tom Cruise, Holly. Do you not think? Like I was reading some of the stuff that geezer gets up to. And I don't want to go off on a side note. We'll do a whole Scientology night with Holly sometime.
Can't read social cues.
Yeah, he can't read social cues, and has this sort of narcissistic lack of empathy. That's it, man.
Well, any person who, like most serial killers, majority of serial killers are male. So a majority of them have an alpha male complex where, borderline personality disorder can come into play. Not everyone has that. One of the most prolific serial killers in American history, Gary Ridgway, was just like basically a simpleton. He was a very uneducated, unintelligent, kind of dim bulb of a man. And
sounds a bit like myself, Sean. Sounds a bit like myself.
I was gonna say, didn't he go back and visit the crime scenes?
Yes, every one. And he dumped 7 within. He dumped so many bodies in the same place that the police found 4 in one afternoon when they were looking for 1.
But what does that tell us about Western society? Not just America, because we're not just going to lump America in, oh, they're their own entity. No, they're not. We have the same system of policing over here. What does that tell us about Western society whenever a simpleton can kill people and dump 4 bodies in the same area and not get caught for a very long time?
Well, I mean,
that's
you can look at you know, I can speak of some European serial killers who kind of fall into that category. You know, the Yorkshire Ripper. You know, he
man,
was.
I've got a crazy story about the Yorkshire Ripper, but we'll do that for a special sometime, because I know a guy in Dublin. I don't want to say his name. He didn't want to come public, but he told me way before it was on YouTube that he found books from his, I think it was like his great grandfather, and it was detailing the Yorkshire Ripper, like conversations with not the Yorkshire Ripper, the London Ripper.
Oh, you're talking about Jack the Ripper.
Sorry, Jack the Ripper.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about the Yorkshire Ripper. He was in the 70s. Yeah, he was in the 70s.
Jimmy Savile's best friend.
I don't know why they called him a Ripper. He didn't he used a hammer. Well,
man, if you hear about that one, one of his victims was killed in eyesight of Jimmy Savile's. Like, he was the notorious pedophile.
I know who he is. I definitely know who he is.
He killed one of his victims in the eyesight of one of Jimmy Savile's like houses, where Jimmy Savile could have seen the whole thing. And they think that like this guy was like in some weird cult with Jimmy Savile. Like, if you look at that whole situation for what it is, that's why I would like to do one with connecting the dots, because there's a lot of these serial killers across the water and here that are like in some weird way like intertwined with each other.
There are definitely ones over here that you can draw straight lines between, like Dean Corll and John Wayne Gacy. You know, there's no disputing the fact that they were at least known to one another, and they were operating around the same time, but in different parts. One in Texas, and one in Chicago.
Do you know what's really strange though? Before we I needed to get this off my chest. I was watching a guy. It's a very hard. Once you meet somebody, right? Whenever you meet a celebrity, right? You gauge them when you're up close with them, and you know, especially like a big one, like for instance Jordan Peterson. I recently went to see Jordan Peterson, and we were right up at the front, and he was looking me dead in the eye, and there was a guy beside me that was a little bit, you know, bigger than me. And you're talking about like psychopaths and narcissists and sociopaths that don't have feelings, that are maybe capable of things that, you know, we don't know what they're capable of. And there was this geezer sitting beside me who was a big guy, and Jordan Peterson takes his eye away from me, and he's now looking at this morbidly obese man. Right now, he's a nice guy. I was speaking to him before. He was like a nice guy. There was Russian sitting beside me. There was a morbid on the right of me. There's a morbidly obese man sitting to the left of me, and he looks at your guy and he starts going at he doesn't aim it at him, but he's looking at him, and he's saying the most nastiest shit about fat people, like about obese people, but he's aiming it, and I'm looking at his eyes, and it's a bit like black magic. And at that moment, I was looking at him, and I was going, right, I'm not all for censorship of speech, but I don't like destroying motherfuckers here, you know, like normal people in the crowd. And I was looking at him, I was thinking to myself, you are a bit of a sociopath. You are, like, I'm witnessing a sociopath here who's a bit of a sadist, who's getting the pleasure of the hurt of another human being. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense? So, like, there's a lot of these serial killers, and like, what is it? For instance, a serial killer, right? So, for instance, just say, hypothetically speaking, we've got a guy like Jordan Peterson who can psychologically break somebody down to the point where they de-life themselves. Imagine he's a. I've thought about this. He is like a shrink, so he gets all his clients in, and he gives them the wrong advice to the point that they go and de-life themselves. Is that a serial killer? Knowing he's getting gratification from their death. Is that a serial killer?
Yeah, you know.
Because I was worried for that guy that was sitting beside me. I'm thinking to myself, I want to go out for a pint with this guy and make sure he's okay.
If you're intentionally, you know, berating someone to the point where, they lose all value of their life, and they feel like, this person has shown me the futility of going on any further, and then they go and do something about it. I could see where the person could have some moral culpability, but you'd have a hard time convicting someone of that. A person, that's a slippery slope. You get into a lot of, free speech. You get into, is a person's mind a weapon? Sure, it is.
100%, man.
But
I have to say this.
a
I'll never.
person, the people, it's been said for centuries that the pen is mightier than the sword.
The mind is the speech, talking,
right.
and
Well, that's
having
what's behind the pen.
yeah, what's behind the pen.
The mind is.
I seen a hypnotist. We went to a hypnotist one time. He was like an entertainer. Now the it didn't work on me. He came up to me and he says, "Right, you go sit back down." It just didn't work on me, right? But there's this
No, not everyone. There's a very low percentage of the population that can actually be hypnotized.
Well, it just didn't work, but it worked on about 4 or 5 people in the crowd, and
unless they were plants.
No, this was my friend. So it definitely wasn't a plant. But she was very not that she was simple, but she is a bit simple, actually. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not saying her name, but if she's listening, you're simple as fuck. She knows it and I know it, right? And he done all this shit, right? And she done all this like jumping around thinking that she was a fucking cockroach or something. And then she goes, right, the show doesn't end. And this is like manipulation of the mind. And
yeah.
And we're sitting at home, and she thinks that she's got a baby leprechaun. So she's like this here, like.
Now this was
after the show.
So this was planted in her mind by the hypnotist.
By the hypnotist, and it goes, but the baby leprechaun will disappear at 12 a.m. Once you go home. At 12 a.m., the baby leprechaun will disappear.
Okay.
And we're sitting there, and she's like, "Don't touch my baby leprechaun. This is my baby." Like, what the fuck's going on here? Like, okay. I thought I was like looking at her, going, "How can you be that fucking stupid?" Like, and anyway, at 12 o'clock, our eyes just go, "Oh, we're home." I can't remember the past couple of hours, and I'm thinking, "Hold on, the fuck here. Like, what? Like this is getting like, was you literally can't remember having a baby leprechaun?" And she was like, "Can't remember everything. I can remember going up on stage, and then this is it." Now, here's a fucked up thing. Do you think that a lot of these serial killers, like, I know we're going off on one here, but this is what we do.
Okay.
Do you think these serial killers can adopt certain mind techniques? Because I can't. I look at a guy like Todd, who can get away with so many crimes, like spraying a whole fucking. Spraying all those people with bullets, killing all those people, and getting away with it. There has to be a level of manipulation for him to be able to go about his life. Do you know what I mean? There's a level of psychopathy and psychology for him to, like, he's adopted some of these techniques that these, like, the Jordan Petersons have, the hypnotists have, to be able to live his normal life. I mean,
well, I don't think that he used like the Jedi mind trick to say, I didn't kill these people, or anything like that. I think that, he was above reproach. There are those people that are so, so ingrained in everyday society that, it's like when you hear that, so-and-so, did you hear, this person, shot up the grocery store. Oh, I could never believe they would do that, But then, then there's like the Dylan Klebold's and Eric Harris's of the world who are like, so bullied and so abused and so beaten down by society that when you hear that they went off and shot up their high school, you're like, hell yeah, I believe they did it. They were, I mean, I'm just,
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying though. You always come from the standpoint. This is why I think that even though you went through similar things as the serial killers, you have this abundance of empathy where
yeah.
you sort of feel so, not you feel sorry for them, but you've got
I'm a
empathy for.
victim's advocate for sure. I mean, I am 100%, um, you know, uh, I don't think that, they should not be held accountable, but I also don't think that there's that prison is a catch-all. It's not. I mean, I was in prison for drug related crimes. I mean, how are you going to cure an addict by putting them in prison with murderers and rapists and pedophiles? It just doesn't work. Everybody says, let the punishment fit the crime. And I agree with that. Let the punishment fit the crime, but it doesn't
Yeah,
ever
no,
fit
I
the
get that,
crime.
and you can't go like
You can't say that prison is the punishment for a shoplifter and a murderer. The only difference is the amount of time that you stay in this place. It just
mm,
doesn't make sense.
yeah, why did you do the shoplifting? Why did you do the murder? And
Right,
what was the cause of these crimes? What's the backstory?
right.
But then you can also, you have to find a healthy balance because you don't want to turn out like Canada either, where you like legalize drugs and the whole place turns into a fucking zombie town. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's
Well,
like, you know,
look, if you're gonna if you can go into a store and buy a fifth of liquor and then drive home and drink it and have no inhibitions, commit crimes, brutalize your children, your wife, or whatever, and that's a completely legal substance. I mean, I've known plenty of heroin addicts. I am a recovering heroin addict, and I've never abused or beaten anyone when I was under the influence of that particular drug or any other drug. So, if you ask me, alcohol is far worse than some of the drugs that are what's known as Schedule 1
but
substances.
it ruins your life more. For instance, like
It
with the
ruined my life because it was illegal. It ruined my life because of the depths that I had to go to. It ruined
Mhm.
my life because I self-medicated and the underlying root of why I was using was never addressed, So, and it wasn't
So what do
addressed
you
in
see
prison.
then? What do you see then with the likes of? I know we're going off one here, but this no, listen, there is good questions here to this
Mhm,
because it is. There's another question here about a society problem in America, and I think that does create serial killers. So it's relevant to what we're speaking about.
mhm.
So whenever you see a place like Canada, right, that's legalized basically all drugs, and there's people running around the streets on trank, and they've got back issues because they spent more time crouched over, absolutely off their face on trank because it's legalized and there's nothing that the government or the policing system can do.
There's a
What?
difference between legalizing and decriminalizing.
Hmm.
Legalizing, I don't know that that's the answer, but I can tell you this. In America, narcotics have been systematically scapegoated and demonized to the point where they're blamed for everything, for every devil under the bed, to every, crime that's committed. The first question is, were they on drugs? It was a drug addict, I mean, you look at the history of drugs and you go back to the 20s and 30s and you see people, and even into the 50s, people saying, oh, marijuana makes people, psychotic. you know I don't have any experience at all with marijuana, but I know that it probably doesn't make people psychotic.
You
um
told me behind the scenes, we were laughing about this. He goes to me, I goes, oh, because we're going to go on TikTok and do this. And I goes, do you smoke? Because you can't smoke on TikTok. You can't really smoke on here either because they just demonetize you. But I'm demonetized anyway, so it doesn't make a difference. But and you're like, no, I've never had a cigarette in my life. I was like, what? He's like, I've never smoked in my life. He goes, I went straight to heroin. And I was like, holy fuck, man. I actually sort of respect that. It's just like, do you know what? Fuck the rest of that. And there is something to be said about that. The drugs that are legalized that we can have, like the cigarettes that are an absolute killer. You know, the alcohol, like the stories of fathers whenever they're drinking, abusing their children,
right,
sexually, physically, and then they wake up and they're just a completely different person. Like that guy on the Dr. Phil show who passed the lie detector test for abusing his kids, but his kids said he abused me whenever he was drunk. And
right.
Dr. Phil said,
he was a blackout drinker.
Blackout drinker. So this, you can be a completely two separate people. But when it comes to heroin, it's like you're trying to suppress the feelings. Like
I wasn't a different person when I was, I could have been, high as Fat Charles's ass, but I wouldn't have
that's what I'm saying.
Been a different person. I was still Sean.
Did you want to be happy though? Like, just to end on
yes, that's why I did it. My depression, my abandonment issues, were so deep. And I didn't have any therapy at this point. I was completely self-medicating because when I was, playing music, in the punk scene in Baltimore, I discovered heroin, and it made all of that pain go away. So I never sought therapy until I had to, deal with my legal issues that I was, racking up, like, I was.
And actually, I get. The thing about it is, Sean, I want to get Holly's view on this too. But what I will say is the different. Like I have never took heroin before, right? But I've nearly had a pill addiction where it was the cocodamols. It was like your version of oxys, and it made me feel happy doing the dishes, going out, going for a walk. It made me
see,
feel
that's
like,
the thing. That's the thing.
Inner happiness. It gave me that. It was a happiness in a pill to the point. But then afterwards, let's be honest here, Sean. The constipation you were depressed.
I'm not saying it doesn't have drawbacks. It does have drawbacks, and it's the law of diminishing returns. You are constantly chasing that first euphoric high, and you'll never get it again. There's only one, and the second one is almost as good, but it's not the first one. It's not that one where it just takes away everything. It alleviates the everyday monotony of having to tie your shoes, the everyday monotony of having to load the dishwasher.
You want to be happy doing those things. You want to be happy. You're like, where's the fucking happiness? Right?
It got to the point where my friends would say, hey, you want to go to a movie? And I'd say, yeah. Before they got to my house, what would I do? I would shoot a speedball so I could be high at the movie. Do you want to go out to eat? Yeah, I'll go. What happened, before I go? Or, when I get there, excuse myself to the bathroom so I can fix up a shot. It becomes that, getting high is the attraction, and everything else is just passing time while you're high. But it's also you're not feeling the for me, it's not, I wasn't feeling the self-loathing, the extreme worthlessness, the extreme depression, extreme I don't know if you can say suicidal ideations, but on here, but that's
well, that's how you're feeling at the end of the day. Forget about the YouTube policies and all the rest. That's how you were feeling. Holly, what is your view on this? Like, I know we went off on a bit of a mad one here, but like, you live in a different state from Sean. Obviously, I live in a small little island that's compressed and it's easily maintained here to a certain degree. What's your view on the drug problem in America, and do you think it's like I suppose it's good for this question here. Well, I want to get back to Jamie Wilson's question, but there's a question here. No, hold on, that is the question, is it? No, there's another one. Sorry, maybe I've missed it there. No, Jamie Wilson's question about America creating sort of psychopaths. What's your view on the whole situation, Holly?
Well, when it comes to the drug situation, I can give my experience with marijuana. I just recently got out of an outpatient program for substance use. 10 days clean right now, so
congratulations.
Yeah,
the cravings are hitting, but I think a lot of the issue is a lot of psychological factors that the government tends to overlook. They just automatically have this, and a lot of people have this stereotype that people with addictions are doing it by choice.
Yes.
That they don't care about the consequence. I mean, granted, some people don't. A lot of people, when you're happy in the moment for taking a hit or two, you're not thinking about the long-term consequences. And I realized that it was having a huge effect on my depression. But I think a lot of the issue with it is people just throw prison at it instead of actually trying to get these people some sort of mitigating psychological help.
Is marijuana
Absolutely.
in your state legal? So
Yes.
were you able to legally buy? Because I can remember whenever I came off cannabis, I was smoking hash at the time, pollen, and I started to hear. I used to go out, and whenever I would smoke it and I was walking home, I used to think people were following me. So I clicked on quite fast. I might have an underlying mental health condition. So I went off it. It was a wee bit rough for a couple of weeks, but for your then addiction. So would you say you were addicted to cannabis, or did you just rely on it and you needed that sort of a little bit of help just to guide you away from it?
As time went on, I think at first I was doing it because it felt good, and then as I was thinking about it, retroactively, I guess is the word. Hindsight.
Yeah.
I think I was masking a lot. And that was my primary usage. At first was because it felt good, but then it was just because I just didn't want to feel anything negative whatsoever.
And then the cannabis, you felt then it got to a point then that the cannabis was the cause of the negative thoughts.
I don't think it was the cause of the negative thoughts. At least in my own perspective, a lot of the. I mean, my family was worried about how I was when I was high. I was just like isolating all the time and just didn't talk to anybody, and that's unusual for me. But marijuana itself, I don't feel was causing any negative thoughts. I think it was exacerbating what was there.
Right, so the underlying issue then. Yeah. I get that. And that is and it's good that you've identified that. And you got the help for that, and it's good that there's awareness about that now. Because do you think then, with the issues that are happening in America, Canada, that side of the pond, do you think that there's a lot of them drug related, or is it a society issue? Because, well, these serial killers, okay, they've done terrible bad things and they deserve to be punished, but do you think like these people are created through society, or is it just them being selfish, taking drugs and doing whatever they please? They're just evil people?
I definitely, when it comes to psychopaths using drugs, I can't really speak on that because I don't really have that much knowledge about the subject, let alone psychopaths in general. But I'd say the average drug user, from what I assume, this is only my assumptions, a lot of it seems to be, I mean, you don't do a drug because you feel good already.
Right.
You don't pick up, in your case, heroin, in my case, marijuana, because you're already having a good time. There's usually, if more often than not, something under there that you're trying to temporarily hide. You're trying to just run away from something that you don't want to confront.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it, I think the biggest thing is that psychological aspect.
And do you think then, like, it's to each situation? Like, I'm not comparing both situations here because I don't know both of your lives. I've spoke to Holly a little bit behind the scenes. I spoke to Sean a little bit behind the scenes. I don't know yous fully to say, well, I know one person's been through this and one person's been through that. You've told me individual things. Do you think, though, the circumstance leads you to the drug? For instance, if I'm in a situation where I've been, sexually abused as a kid, I've been abused. My mother has never been there. My father's never been there. I've had to raise myself. I've went through Christmases hungry, nights hungry. I'm cold. That then there's a higher chance of me going to heroin. And then maybe if I'm having issues in my life, like, there was an issue where my mother and father broke up whenever I was young. Not what way could I put this? Like, there's certain social issues. Maybe I'm working a couple of jobs. I'm not making the money that I deserve in life, and those things. So you're maybe gravitate towards a lesser form of a drug, like not a lesser form of a drug, but a lesser hitting drug than heroin, like a lesser grip drug than heroin.
I think personally, as long as you're getting the high you're looking for, regardless of what type of drug it is, you're gonna go towards something. You can't predict whether the first thing you're gonna be offered in life is marijuana or LSD or cocaine, whatever. You're gonna gravitate, for me at least, to some of the first things that you took. Granted, I started looking into like DXM and dissociating and all that kind of shit, but yeah, a lot of it is social factors. A lot of it depends on who you're around and what you have access to.
Yeah, and I do believe, I'm not saying that I'm right. I would like to actually look into it a bit more. I think, though, the trauma that some people go through can determine the amount of reality they want to escape, which in turn would equal some people choosing like trank. Like, the people that are taking trank have to be dealing with worse issues than the people that are maybe suffering from like marijuana addiction. I'm not comparing, because I'm sure that there's variations in that. I'm not saying I'm 100% true. I could be 100% wrong, but you get what I'm saying. Like, who wants to put themselves into a state of trank where you're taking cocaine, heroin, fentanyl, horse tranquilizer to completely take yourself out of reality, lie on the street, vomit and OD in the street where you need where you're just lying there like a piece of meat. That to me is a real bad societal issue, and we're seeing that today with the new serial killer that has been going around killing homeless people. We'll speak about that in a different live stream. But actually, just to stay on Todd here, because we went into one there. That's what I do, because it's me. But just to stay on Todd, so he's had his first victim, right? Now, see the victims that he has. The 7, he killed 7 women, wasn't it?
He killed 7 people. They weren't all women. Yeah.
No, he killed 7 people. Now, what was the time frame in between? Was it sporadic? Was it organized? Was he an unorganized killer? Was he a disorganized killer?
No, he was both, actually, because his first crime, he was basically a child, so you can't say he was an organized offender at that point in time, although he was pretty sophisticated for his age. I mean, he planned it, he carried it out, he did things that people twice his age probably failed at, so I would have to say that he was on his way to becoming a very organized offender when he killed the people at the Superbike Motorsports, is actually what the place was called. When he killed them, that was completely organized, premeditated, and planned out and carried out and executed, no pun intended, with extreme precision, and cold, calculating brutality. And he got away with it, and he got away with it for years. And his next victims weren't until he was extremely well set up. Like I said, he owned 100 acres of land, a nice house, a huge barn, and behind that barn he had a cargo trailer, a shipping, one of the things they ship cargo on boats, and he used that as a dungeon where he would keep women for as slaves, sex slaves. That was his plan, was to continuously do that. However, as I said, Todd, uh, he was living good and eating good, and he was putting on weight at an alarming rate. It was not good for his health. It was not good for um, you know the way he wanted to live. He wasn't he wasn't the leading man looks that he wanted. That was all gone now. He was extremely morbidly obese, and so he had to resort to flashing his money around to get women, and he had to lower his standards to try to get women who were kind of in a situation like I described. They were drug addicts. Um they were on kind of on the skids. So he would go to this one diner, and that's where he met his next victim. Was a girl named Megan who had a boyfriend named Johnny, and they were addicts. They were heroin addicts. I think maybe some meth involved in there, and he asked them to come to his house, do some work, and what he said happened is when they arrived, Johnny pulled a knife on him to attempt a robbery because they knew that he had a lot of money there. But in actuality, um, as soon as he opened the door, he shot the guy in Johnny in the chest twice, and then shot him in the head once, and then locked Megan in the cargo trailer, and raped her, abused her, if had her there for a while, and then
It's
and
terrible, man, isn't it? Isn't it? Like that's we can go by things like that. We can say that, but for me, it's like that is to go through something like that from a
yeah,
guy like that is just, especially he's got a presence about him now, hasn't he? So it's like there's the scary aspect to it that that woman would have went through
well,
extreme fear, like.
yeah, well, he kills her, and um this is after, he's fed up with her. He's kind of done with her. She's not being 100% compliant, and I guess he just, it became tiresome. So he kills her, buries her with Johnny, and on his property. Some time goes by, and he, does the same thing. He offers employment to a woman and her husband or boyfriend. Um, Now, this time they're not drug addicts. So this time when they go missing, it's not as, you know, a foregone conclusion. Oh, they probably ran off. They're drug addicts, whatever. So he kills the guy immediately, just like last time. But he keeps the woman around, and she's a fighter. She's not giving up. She's keeping herself, doing what she has to do, putting up with his sexual abuse. She's going to survive, and she does. And the police come, because what Todd does is, as smart as he is, uh, when he was
Is this
first,
in his dungeon?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
so that all these incidents happen in his dungeon. Then that's what
yeah,
his main purpose is, to kill the guy if they're with the guy, and then
yes,
take the lady to just to
yes.
paint the picture for people. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So he notices that, the news, they're looking for these people. He goes on. He was a real nut about social media, especially Facebook. So he'd go on and say, "Oh, they probably ran off. They, try to, I guess, create a spin." Um,
And back then on social media, there was a lot of users, but actually comments would have had a little bit more impact on situations like that. So now you've got billions of people on social media. Back
right,
then, there was probably only millions of people.
right,
So for him to go onto Facebook, if there was a local person in the area, maybe there's a Facebook group, a Facebook sort of event to look for a certain
yeah,
lady or a fella that's went missing, his
yeah.
comment might be took into consideration. Well, actually, hold on, he might have a point. So he understood that. It's very strange
And
to hear.
like I said, he
You know,
was a manipulator. I mean,
yeah, yeah.
there's no other word for it. He was an absolute um salesman. He could sell a situation, a product. He was he was the type of guy that probably could have been a fairly decent attorney, you know. Um, so what happens is, when he realizes that there's sort of a groundswell of people searching for these two, um, he takes her phone and makes her sign into her Facebook, and he starts posting as her, saying, "Look, um, I forgot her husband's name. I think it was Charlie, but she's like, Charlie and I have split. We don't want to have anything to do with anybody else. Leave us alone." But her mother knew that this was bullshit because she had a dog that she absolutely loved, and that dog was left unattended at her apartment. So she's like, there's no way she would have done this. The verbiage in these messages, it's just not her. It's just not the way she speaks. Because, what would have been smarter would have been for him to force her to write the messages in her own vernacular, but he didn't do that. He wanted
Yeah.
absolute control.
Well, of
So,
course, he's probably thinking to himself, she might write like a subliminal message, only
well,
somebody like a
sure,
family member knows.
sure, but are you going to take that chance when a guy standing in front of you with an automatic weapon, a guy that weighs damn near 500 pounds? Who knows? But
True, actually.
anyway,
Yeah, you're
uh,
right, actually. You're
um,
actually right about that, yeah.
um, so what he doesn't realize, and what wasn't as commonly known back then, was the cell phone pings, and people are seeing, well, look, her phone is is pinging from this area constantly from the same
Oh,
place. So they're
yeah.
like, that's Todd Kohlhepp's compound, which is basically what it was, because it was huge. Everybody knew he lived there. So
Wow.
the police, he opens the door, and it's like an episode of Cops. I mean, they're just there in full force. And while he's giving the cops his BS version of it, like, look, yeah, they were here, they blah blah blah. Well, they find out that, look, the cell phone is behind the house. It's in this, so
Oh, so it
they,
just didn't ping off a mass. They were able to triangulate the actual location of the device.
yes, yeah.
Wow.
And then they so they get her out of the dungeon. And so the cop who's talking to him is like, look, we know you're a liar. We just got her out of the, she's coming up to identify you right now. You're going to prison for the rest of your life. And he's like, uh, you know you know, whatever, you know. So he goes in, he gets into his interrogation it's on line. You can pull it up. It's as I highly recommend anyone who's
Yeah, yeah.
interested to watch it, because you see the arrogance of Todd Kohlhepp right there in the harsh light of day. He just talks about how, you know, he says, you know, my violence is bigger than theirs. You know, I don't know what that means, but anyway, I guess he was just throwing out sound bites like crazy. You know, he just wanted to have a catchphrase. You know, he was like, you know, talking about, you know, I did this, talking about how, you know, his body count is about to reach 3 digits, and, you know, really just is selling himself, you know, as the ultimate serial killer. You know, he's like, I'm caught. I'm not going to go down as a chump. I'm a serial killer. Um, yeah, he did live. Yeah, where he lived was out in, it wasn't, he wanted it like that. And like I said, he spent $80,000 to have a fence built around his property. So he was, you know, he was kind of basically like a David. Oh, you have it pulled up?
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't
Yeah,
ignoring you.
yeah. No, go ahead, play it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's you know,
I
yeah,
don't know. This is 7 minutes. There's one that's like an hour, and
there should be one that's closer to 3 hours. That's the full interrogation, and you can see he has no remorse at all.
right. So we'll play this. This is like a 7-minute clip. So we'll play this here.
30 seconds. You what now? I cleared that building under 30 seconds. You guys would have been.
He's talking about the Superbike place.
My kill game is strong.
My kill game is
It is
strong.
the confession that rocked.
So what did he say there?
He said he cleared that room in 30 seconds, talking about the Superbike place. And then the cop was like, 30 seconds, huh? And Todd says, yeah, my kill game is strong.
Wow. So this motherfucker thinks he's like in a video game or something.
Yes, yes.
Let's see if I can play this on a little bit. I'll play it from here.
All by the acts of Todd Kohlhepp. On Saturday, November 5th, investigators sat down in this tiny room at the Spartanburg County
See the way they shake his hand? That's like to sort of make him feel comfortable, isn't it?
Sheriff's
Yeah,
Office.
yeah,
You
yeah.
got the confession of a lifetime.
Once we were in there and we realized the magnitude of what started to realize the magnitude of what we were dealing with, yeah, it kind of hit home.
Investigators Mark Gaddy and Tommy Clark began to chip away at the mountain of a story that they were about to hear.
The land was supposed to be.
So like people need to understand this that are watching this right now. Sean speaks to this guy. Sean speaks to Todd Kohlhepp. The guy, you know, Sean, who's on the screen right now. This is one of the serial killers that Sean speaks to and has communication with. So it's crazy to think that, you know, you've been profiling this guy. Let's listen on here.
My sanctuary. Yeah, not my killing field.
While Mark was asking him questions about Kayla's case, I would ask him questions about superbikes.
The back and forth game of chess would go on for hours.
Because I took Kayla for a walk without her handcuffs or leg chains. Took her for a walk around the property one day.
Sean, he just said he took one of his victims for a walk. Is that true?
Oh, I think the cop said that he took, you know, went for a walk around his property, because Todd had buried Johnny and I forget the other guy's name, but he had buried them on the property, and also Megan. He had used what's called like a front, I believe it's called a front end loader, like a almost like a bulldozer type. It's a small tractor.
Yeah,
And you could basically dig a grave with one scoop, and he would carry the bodies down in the bucket of the machine and
Jesus
just
Christ, man.
dumped them in a pre-dug grave. And so I believe what the cop said is, he walked around his Todd's property and saw the graves.
Jesus, man.
So you pulled out the Beretta, and what happened? Shot the mechanic twice.
In between the bouts of
He's
secrets,
talking
Todd
about
kept circling back
superbikes.
to the things that mattered most to him.
We would stop the interview because he would go off on a little tangent.
There is a Ruger precision rifle that I've had tweaked in there.
So we would let him talk about that.
Back on topic, investigators would search for detail about Kayla and Charlie.
I didn't know what to do with it, man. One side, I really wanted to drop her. The next side, I kind of wanted to save her ass.
Then flipping to
Do you hear what he said there? He's like,
Yeah.
one side I wanted to drop her, and the next side I wanted to save her ass. It's like he was fighting his demons. Well, the good angels telling me to save her ass, and the bad demons telling me to kill her.
He had no intention of saving anyone. He was, he just wanted that power to say, well, like he told Megan he was going to let her go, and then he shot her in the back of the head as she was walking out of the dungeon. So, he was, as most serial killers are, they have a sort of God complex where, especially Gacy and Dennis Rader, would choke a victim to the point of death and then release pressure so they would revive, and then they would tighten it all over again so they could watch that light go out of their eyes as many times as they could before they killed them.
It's the definition of being a sadist, isn't it? Like,
absolutely. There's nothing more sadistic than that.
Mm-hmm. Well, watch on here and see what he has to say.
I will tell you that once I was engaged. Okay. So it's like that one. It's almost like a video game.
going off the secrets that Kayla Brown relayed.
Did he ever tell you how many people he's killed out there?
Story-wise, he's told me about 4.
Investigators were able to link body counts to missing couple Megan and Johnny Coxey that he picked up on the side of the road.
So that's when he picked him up and took him down to his property and said, I've got some work you can do. Let me go get some cleaning supplies.
And that's when Johnny pulled a knife out. And
you just have to appreciate the cops here, man, the way they can stay so patient.
you shot him. I shot him.
We didn't find a knife anywhere near Johnny, or he didn't direct us to a knife that was used.
Went ahead and cuffed her, patted her down, told her I wasn't going to hurt her.
And kept her held up in that container just like he kept.
Man, that's one dark looking place. Like, you just get a feeling from that place, don't you? Like,
it looks like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre
it does,
place.
that's the container he kept him in.
Yeah. It looks like that, like something from like House of 1,000 Corpses.
Wow.
Kayla,
She was happy as hell for like 2 days. Happy as hell.
whether she yelled or tried to make her run for it, he just shot her in the back of the head. And then he dug a hole and buried her beside Johnny.
While detectives wanted answers about his victims, Todd wanted to boast about his skills.
I cleared it in under 30 seconds. You what now? I cleared that building in under 30 seconds. You guys would have been proud. I'm sorry, but you guys would have been proud.
A skilled marksman.
What did he say there, Sean? I missed that.
He said you guys would have been proud.
So this guy's sort of like he's like maybe like a bit of a police buff. He thinks that,
Well,
like a lot of these.
That's the thing, just again, like Dennis Rader, he thinks like the police are his friends. Kenneth Bianchi, one of the Hillside Stranglers, he wanted to be a police officer, so it's a weird, like a two sides of the same coin, it's like, because, if Bianchi had passed the police test, would he have been a great cop, or would he have been a corrupt cop, using his authority to rape and murder.
Well, that's the thing.
Of course, we know what he would have done. He would have been a corrupt cop who used his authority to rape and murder, because that's who he is.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like the fine line, because you become a cop because you want to help people, but essentially that's actually the biggest load of balls, because you become a cop because you want to be seen as the hero. And
Right.
it's the same as this these serial killers. They've got these abilities, they've got these things they can do, regardless if they're simpletons, regardless if they're highly intelligent, organized, disorganized, it doesn't make a difference. They've got these certain abilities that they can do, and at the end of the day, they want to be recognized. They want to be recognized for the work that they can do, and that, to me, that is scary, because we can all resonate with that. We all want to be We all want to feel accomplishment for the work that we do. These motherfuckers, because they lack empathy, sympathy. There's some of them are sexual sadists. You know, they sodomize women. They do terrible, terrible things. But actually, they want recognized also, and that is like, a lot of them would see cops and go, well, I want to be like that because that guy's got his life together. He's getting the gratification that I want, and he doesn't even need to kill anybody.
I have a friend. I don't want to talk. I don't want to give his name. I don't want to, give too many details about him, because people will know who I'm talking about. But he committed a heinous crime, and he did his time, and he is, living the life of Riley right now. He owns his own business. He's doing quite well. He's thought of as a minor celebrity in certain circles, and so, how does that fit into the adage, crime doesn't pay? It's hard to wrap your head around how some of these serial killers actually are able to not just become part of the pop culture zeitgeist, but some of them are actually able to permeate the consciousness of society, to the point that they become almost innocuous, and they're
It's the definition of infamous. Infamous is that
but
definition.
What I'm getting at is, because they become so accepted and such a part of everyday conversation, like, oh, that guy, he's a Charles Manson type, or that guy reminds me of Ted Bundy. Okay, why does he remind you of Ted Bundy? Did he kill 33 women? Or why would you
exactly
say? You know what I mean?
you're
It's like
it's differentiating between hold on, that guy's like Ted Bundy. What do you mean? Yeah, Ted Bundy killed 33 women and went back to the bodies of some of these women and sodomized those bodies.
He was a necrophiliac.
Yeah, so let's define here what he's a bit like Ted Bundy. I suppose there's a bit of a Ted Bundy in all of us. We're all a little bit narcissistic. We all think that we can take the stand and go into the courtroom and win our own case and not have a solicitor. But then there's not all of us. A very small, minute selection of us are capable of murdering 33 women and being that type of a character. And yeah, we, for proof of what you've just said there, and I've always thought about this, Sean, is that these serial killers go into prison and they're that infamous. They turn from infamous to famous that women trust them to have children with them.
Yeah, Bundy has a daughter.
Serial killers, because they're so sought after, and that all, for me personally, what that comes down to, you see, people don't like what I'm about to say, but this is the truth. The truth is that the world is ran by sex. So, for instance, why does a man do what he does? Why do I do what I do in this earth? Well, you could say I do what I do to provide for my son. Okay, that's one reason. But let's be honest here. I do what I do. Why do I get jealous? Why does a man get jealous? All men go through it. If another successful man walks into the room and your missus is looking at that, and you strive to be more successful because everything is driven by sex. Everything. So whenever you have these men that are in prison that are so infamous and so evil, and they've killed 33 women, and then you can't understand why women are flocking to that, it's because that is what drives society: sex, ego. You know, to a certain degree, why are narcissists more viewed than people that are more pure? Like, for instance, and another example of that would be, there's a guy over here called Decca Higgy, and this guy is an extreme narcissistic sociopath. This guy's he's convicted of a sexual assault, 2 rape allegations, and an allegation of child molestation, multiple domestic abuse charges, a coercive control charge, and a convicted racist. So he has all of that, but thousands of people tune in to see him speak, not because he's an interesting character, because the guy can barely put 2 sentences together because he's a fucking dimwit, but because their imagination's running wild at, how is this enigma sitting in front of me speaking when we all know that he is a notorious grape ape that would do terrible things if given the chance. That drives society. Notoriety is one, ego, and then that in turn, society fills their ego, and then they are facilitated to do bad things, and then you add drugs on the top of that, and you're dimming the feelings of these fuckers, and they go out and just, ruin people's lives. Sex drives everything, and Decca Higgy would have no issue getting with a woman who would seem perfectly normal in real life, but just has this deep desire for bad men that are capable of bad things, because whether women like this or not, women love bad men. Even the ones that look pretty and nice and they all look flowery, and they're the ones that like bad men, because it's deep rooted in our DNA for men to be violent and for women to feel that protection, because a violent man can also protect a woman. And this is why women are so coherently attracted to serial killers, rapists, and murderers, because they feel that can be a protection to them.
Well, I agree with that too. I think it goes back to what I mentioned earlier. The reptile brain, the part of the brain that is just at the core, we are no different than a lot of animals. We the male of the species, is normally like the more flamboyant, the more aggressive. Look at the male lion as opposed to the lioness. The male has the male peacock, the peacock, as opposed to the peahen. The peacock has, all of the grandiose feathers. The peahen is a rather, ordinary looking bird, because, the male of the species is, I guess, kind of has to prove itself, or has to show that it's capable of virility, and not only that, but brutality and protection and things of that nature. And although we've made strides to become a more enlightened society, we haven't really gone that far from our animalistic roots.
Agreed. I agree. We've just deviated that to a different demographic. Like, it used to be, if I was in a tribe, Sean was in a tribe, Sean's tribe tried to take over my tribe, I kill Sean or Sean kills me. Now it's a little bit different from that. Now we live in a civilized society, but we still have this genetic thing inside us that me and Sean, regardless of our stature, regardless of our build, male genetics are derived from violence, and sex and ego and narcissism drives the planet, whether people like this or not. And I'm looking at the situation for what it is, and these serial killers have got, and they have tapped, not that they should tap into it, but they're working on a primal reptilian instinct that some of us have lost, and it's showing through them. Because I'm telling you now, Sean, in the 1100s, the 9th century, the 10th century, whatever, blah 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 blah, way back in the day, these people, these serial killers, probably would have had a lot of money. They probably would have had land. They probably, because they're able to kill. They have that in their DNA too. I can kill that woman, I can kill that child, I can kill that man, and I can sleep well at night. And in turn, they probably would have had a very good looking woman, because that woman would have felt protected from the outside world.
I mean, you look at some of the people who were look at the term great warrior, not to prove my nerdiness, but Yoda said war doesn't make one great, and it's true, but it's not looked at that way. People look at going all the way back to
Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan's a very good example. So Genghis Khan
Alexander the Great,
murderers,
Napoleon,
rapists. These people were rapists and murderers. Genghis Khan killed so many people. He cut the carbon footprint of human beings on planet Earth. But people quote this guy as a good guy. So time is the essence, and people need to understand this. And I've always thought about this. And just a little side note, time is the essence. So Genghis Khan killed more people than Hitler, right? But if you quote Hitler as a positive representative, or give a positive quote of Hitler, right, then you're considered a bad person. But if you quote Genghis Khan, you're considered, oh, look at that lovely guru philosopher guy. No, Genghis Khan was probably one of the most evil people on planet Earth. He killed so many people, reduced the human carbon footprint. He raped, murdered, took over, slayed babies, women, children. We can't even imagine the horrors that guy created, but we can quote him as a good person. So what does that tell us? Time is everything.
It also tells us that history is written by the victorious.
Exactly.
Hitler,
Yes.
Had Hitler not attacked Poland in the winter, not tried to attack Russia and go through Poland in the dead of winter, run out of gas, and have most of his troops slaughtered or die of pneumonia.
Not be on meth.
Not be on methadone, which was synthesized to keep the Wehrmacht troops fighting like supermen. It was, and there was a lot of occult issues going on with the Nazis as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Hitler was really involved in Jewish mysticism.
Mm-hmm.
His mystic was a Jew. I mean, he killed him later, but still he was
look at that there, Sean. Look, get your reaction to that, right, from our very intelligent Emma that comes on. Thank you, Emma, for the comment. Thank you for all the comments. I'm not just picking out Emma. I feel like sometimes I have to not treat them like children, but I don't want to pick out somebody's comment and say that's better. But that's a very good comment. Did you know Hitler's soldiers' uniforms were Hugo Boss? Yes, Hugo Boss designer labels. Fact. Like, fuck me. Like,
that is true.
Do you know what I mean? We're getting shot here by fucking
SS. If you look at the SS officers' uniforms, I mean, there's no denying the fact that they were more stylish than any other military uniform ever. They were black, for one, which is a sign of high fashion. They were, they were the cut of the uniforms. My dad collected World War II memorabilia. He was an antiques collector. So I've seen, SS officers' uniforms in person. I've actually worn one, just because I I had to see what this amount of evil would feel like, and it was a
Evil
weird.
stylish, Sean. Evil
It
stylish.
was a weird feeling. You know what? It made me feel like Darth Vader. It was like it was because
You're a fucking stormtrooper.
it was
Dun,
all
dun,
black.
dun, dun, dun.
It was. I mean, when I did it, I was a teenager, so I couldn't really get my head around the numbers of the Holocaust, and I still don't get my head around them because I don't know them. I don't know that there were 6 million Jews in Europe at the time. I don't know that. I don't know. Some people say it was 100,000, 200,000. The point is, a lot of people died. And if you say there were 300,000 or 400,000 Jews in Europe at the time and they were slaughtered, and then you say, no, it was 6 million, but it really was 300,000, you do a disservice to the people who really died because
Exactly,
you're
yeah.
saying 300,000, that's not enough. We have to up the number.
Look,
That's propaganda. That's all.
It's disgraceful too. But I have always stayed away from that. I know a lot of information, which I'll not be speaking about that. We'll maybe do a live stream and Rumble just about that. Because now we're getting into the realms of what's real and what's not real. Obviously, there was always propaganda pushed. There was propaganda pushed by the Nazis. There was propaganda pushed by Stalin, who was
There's
the great
propaganda pushed by the United States. The United States had concentration camps for the Japanese, not concentration camps, but internment camps for Japanese soldiers, So, I mean, war is a terrible thing, and people do terrible things in war. Nobody is heroic completely in a war. There is no one side that is 100% altruistic. It just doesn't happen. If you're going to be 100% altruistic, you're not going to have weapons. You're not gonna go into villages like the Americans did in Vietnam and slaughter women and children because they were working for the VC.
You tell me what's right and wrong here. So I'm not going to mention the guy's name, but I spoke to a guy who was, I'm not going to even say where he was fighting. He was a soldier of a country, and he witnessed some terrible things coming from tribes, and they would use children. They would do terrible things to children. That's all I can say. And him and his friends they were away from their duties, and it was their day off, and they chose their day off to go in and execute these people that were now. It wasn't their mission to do so, but they
were
committed
vigilantes,
vigilantes, and they committed murder. But because of that murder,
is it justified?
Yeah, it's thousands of children were saved. So I said to myself, look, well, that's murder is murder, but at the end of the day, you've saved thousands of children. I goes, do you sleep at night? He says, of course I sleep at night. He goes, that guy should have been took out, assassinated years ago, but it was the politics that was keeping him alive. And fuck politics. If you're doing that to kids, I don't care what religion, race they are. And this was a white guy saving black children in a certain area of the world, and he done it, and he saved them, and fair play to him. And there's a stigma here in Ireland when it comes to war. For instance, if you're an Irish nationalist, you have to be for the Palestinians. I support the Palestinian people, like the war in Israel and Palestine at the minute. But let's not take away the fact that the Palestinian people have elected a tyrannical force that is Hamas, that is a terrorist organization. And I also know that the Israelis can also be considered a terrorist organization for what they've done to the Palestinians. People cannot differentiate, and people want you to choose a side. I choose no side from the Israeli and Hamas. I choose the good Jewish people and the good Palestinians. They're the people I look out for. And anybody that comes from Ireland that's I'm for Israel or I'm from Palestine, you haven't learned your lesson from the conflict with Britain. Because the conflict of Britain fucking tore us apart. And we of people should know the difference, that the Protestants in this country and the Catholics in this country, there's no fucking difference. It was the British government, it was the Irish government that divided us, and it was the psychopaths that benefited. And that's exactly what's happening in Israel, Palestine, and people need to realize that. So we need to be able to differentiate what's the difference between good and bad. And as you say, there's good and bad on both sides in every equation.
Yeah. Well, I've used this quote many times, and to me, it's one of the greatest quotes in history, and it happens to be from a serial killer. And it's Richard Ramirez who said, "Killing is killing, whether it's done for duty, profit, or fun. There's no difference. You're taking a human life. If you're doing it because, they live under a different flag or they profess a different religion, or you killed them because you just had the urge to do so, a person is dead, um, all the potential that person had is erased, so what does the reason really matter? I mean, was the state of Florida any better than Ted Bundy because they put him in an electric chair and he, brutally beat women to death? I
You see,
mean,
I think they should have kept him alive to study him to see what
of
made
course
him
they
to
should
see what made
have.
him tick. Because
Of course
for,
they should have.
I
That's
stand I stand with the point when it comes to the death penalty, right? And it is look, I'm not super religious, right? I'm going through a moment in my life where I'm reading the whole Old Testament again, and I want to figure out what these things mean. I want to be more well equipped when it comes to this, right? But where I come from this is that if a man kills another person, right, and then that man is caught, it's not up to us as the people to kill that person. Now, do they deserve life?
That's
Definitely.
vengeance. That's vengeance. That's not justice.
But even for the parents and the siblings and the relatives of the person
you
that
can't
person,
bring that person back.
I could imagine. I
I
wouldn't want.
understand wanting revenge. I
Mhm.
definitely understand that. I had my wife and I were carjacked at gunpoint. And if I could have got my hands on the person who perpetrated the crime, I certainly would have killed them.
That's what I'm trying to say. You wanted to take revenge. It's not up
Right.
to. For
I
me,
don't
it's
want
not
it to go through the court system and have 12 people
exactly.
I don't even know and a judge say, you know what, we think that something was done wrong to you, so
Yes.
we are going to carry out this sentence.
So you would rather just go, do you know what? He's going to prison and I know the guy's alive. And you would, if somebody done something to my family that was terrible, right? I wouldn't want that person to die in a nice, honorable way on a nice,
No.
comfortable bed. If he was going to die or she was going to die, I would rather have it on my hands on the
Right.
way that I
Call
want.
it what it is. It's
Yes.
vengeance.
Vengeance,
If
yes.
you want justice, then send them through the court system and come to a sentence that is just,
Exactly.
a sentence that is going to eradicate this person's inherent nature to kill and to steal and rob and to
And then if you look at it, Sean, for what it is, there's 40% of the people on death row in America that are innocent. So that statistic alone
You know
should
how
be.
many innocent people died in gas chamber, lethal injection, the electric chair? I mean, for Christ's sake, some states still have a firing squad.
Yeah, it's like right. See if there's for me personally, right? So for instance, we don't take risks when it comes to certain things because it could have a harm on society. So why would you take, if there is a 1% chance, right? If there's 1% of death row that's innocent, then you have to abolish death row.
Yes.
There's 40%, and this is a real statistic. 40% of people on death row in the United States of America are innocent.
Look, we have something called the Innocence Project, and I'm a huge proponent of it. The Innocence Project opens up death row cases and uses current DNA and forensic technology that didn't exist when these sentences were handed down. They have cleared, at the last count I know of, there were 6 men that were scheduled to die were released because they were innocent, not guilty, but innocent. There's a difference between being found not guilty and
Exactly.
being found
And,
innocent.
and before we go on to Jamie's question here, I have to really state this. It's the Decahigi effect again. I don't mean to keep bringing him up, but I have to because he's very relevant. So Decahigi was NFA'd on a lot of his things. And people are, I've got like hundreds of thousands of views on TikTok talking about Decahigi, by the way. Like one of my last videos got 125,000 views and people commenting and stuff about it because they couldn't believe this guy actually exists. But the Decahigi effect is that this guy got away with so much because it's very hard to prove rape. You need DNA evidence. If you don't have that within 48 hours, it doesn't exist anymore. You don't have witnesses, video footage, and all the rest, then it's going to get NFA'd, no further action. No further action and not guilty doesn't mean you didn't fucking do it. It means that there wasn't enough evidence provided to come to the conclusion that this person's guilty. Now, there's certain cases where a person's not guilty, obviously, and they really didn't do it, but you have to look at every individual case as it comes.
There's something in American court systems, or the American court system, that covers that from a defendant's point of view.
Mhm.
It's called an Alford plea. And that means that there's enough evidence that makes you look guilty, but you actually didn't do it. But if you plead not guilty and go to trial, you're going to be convicted.
And
Now,
they know.
How fucked up is that? How
And for
fucked
instance-
up is that?
But that would be a situation like if me and Sean are in a car, we'll both get carjacked, right? We'll get carjacked at the same time. I'm holding, it's an open carry state. I've got a Beretta 9mm in my jacket. Sean gets shot with a Beretta 9mm in my from the carjacker. He dies, and it just so happens there's a bullet missing from my Beretta, so it looks like I've shot Sean. So when that goes to if there's no witnesses,
you have my blood on you.
Yes.
There's gunshot residue in the car.
And he shoots you through my window, which makes it look like I've shot you.
Substantial and forensic evidence against you. So what can you do? You know, you can
Exactly.
fight it. You can fight it and risk a capital conviction. There's a moratorium on the death penalty in most states in America right now, but life imprisonment versus taking an Alford plea, which is not a guilty plea and not a not guilty plea. It's simply stating, I acknowledge that the state has sufficient evidence to convict me.
What's the most complex case Sean has ever came across? What's the most? Well, I suppose I'll rephrase that because you just solely speak to serial killers, but maybe actually I don't want to speak for you. But what is the most complex serial killer or most complex case you've ever came across?
With serial killers, it's every case is complex because you have confessions, and then you have recants, and then you have forensic evidence that later comes to light. So none of them are what some people say, oh, this case is slam dunk. The evidence is irrefutable. But in my experience, you can't bet on the outcome of any jury because I've been called up for jury duty. Of course, I can't serve on a jury because I'm a convicted felon. But, all you need is one sympathetic person on that jury and you can throw a monkey wrench in any case. Any case. I mean, so to say which case is most complex, they're all complex, really. But I personally think that Haddon Clark's case is the most complex of the serial killers that I know. I mean, his case, it's just, it's mind-boggling. It's his whole
We
life.
done a live on Hayden Clark, didn't we? So if anybody wants to go back and listen to that, it's on the channel. Just type in Holden
Yeah.
Official. That's not on the Serial Killing Minds channel. These lives will be exclusive to the Serial Killing Minds. So if anybody's watching this, head over now at Serial Killing Minds, all the lowercase, and subscribe to that channel. This is live streaming on that channel now. But if you want to watch the Hayden Clark one, just type in Holden Official Hayden Clark, and Sean speaks about that case instead of us going back into it again, because we do a whole live stream on that there. Well, one in particular that stands out to me is a case that really, would you hear this for injustice? Well, I'm not saying it's injustice, but it's definitely points. I'll get your view on this anyway. So there is a case over here, young Joe Joyce, and this guy's a traveling guy. You would know these people as gypsies.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a bare-knuckle boxer. He's a good fighter. And an incident happened not too far away from me. It's probably a 2-hour drive, 3-hour drive away from myself. And basically 3 men came to his house armed with weapons. Now, young Joe comes out of the house with a slash hook, I believe. Forgive me if it's about the weapon, if I got that wrong, and a bottle of pneumonia. Right now, he demobilizes one of the guys. He hits the guy in the leg, and unfortunately, now remember, they came to his house. They went to do damage onto him. He hits the guy in the leg, and the guy goes to the hospital, bleeds out, and dies. Right now, obviously
he must have hit the femoral artery.
Yeah, now obviously that's manslaughter, right? That's manslaughter because he didn't mean to kill him. It was a demobilizing blow. It was below the waist. He didn't want to kill him. He wanted to kill him.
I would consider that. There is no self-defense law in most states in America, but
But this guy, young Joe, even though there's a self-defense law in the north here and the Republic and England, Wales, and Scotland, young Joe was trialed, convicted for murder.
Yeah, that's crazy.
He got done for murder, even though people approached his house. Now, he did come out with a weapon. I understand that the skin was broken. I've been looking into the laws. When the skin's broken and a person dies from a blow because of an object put upon by another person, the murder is always on the table. But it was a 2-inch cut. He did not mean, sorry, a 2mm cut. 2mm cut. He didn't mean to kill him. If he wanted if it was intentional murder, he would have went for the throat or above the waist. He went for the legs to demobilize him, and the jury sentenced him to murder. Now, not only that, I was told, now a lot of people are saying that this is bullshit, but I was told this from the family, that it's that corrupt. They put young Joe into a prison where they put the people who came to his house, one of them died, one of them got sentenced to prison themselves for attempted murder on Joe. So Joe gets put into prison for murder.
They put him in the same prison.
So no, they put the other fella who attempted to murder Joe into a prison with Joe's family members in the hopes that there was retaliation.
Right.
When that didn't work, they put this fella into the prison with young Joe. So they're together in the same vicinity, hoping that something would kick off. Now, I thought about that, and I thought to myself, that is proof of corruption, because they're looking to make young Joe out and his family to be murdering people and animals, so then it sort of justifies the sentence that they give him. Now, I agreed. I said to the family, I think it's manslaughter. I think, if you take a life, you need to pay some type of you need to pay for that, definitely. But Murder, definitely not. So that's the system that we're living in. People think
Well,
that, it's not. We're living in a bad times, man.
yeah, in America, there is justifiable homicide, and justifiable homicide, you wouldn't serve any time. Yeah, you would be exonerated. But there's also um, most cases end in plea bargains in America because if you're guilty, for one, you don't want to risk a stiffer sentence. If you're not guilty, um, but like I said, there's substantial circumstantial evidence against you, you may not want to risk a trial, especially if you can't afford, a high powered or, uh, a well connected attorney. Um, so when you go to court, it's not necessarily about guilt or innocence, but it's about how much you can afford to play the game. Unfortunately, if you have to go in with a public a public defender, or as I call them, a public pretender, um, you're most likely not going to get the outcome that you want, which would be to go home. And that's why they're going to say, look, there's a deal on the table for you to do X amount of years, and with the possibility of parole. And, a person like me who has a record, can be manipulated and played into that corner where you might have to do some time. But ironically enough, I was accused of a crime that I didn't commit after I was released from prison, and it was by my own asshole brother. And I would not plead guilty to something that I didn't do. And the judge, the prosecutor was like, "Look, you have a horrendous record. The judge is not going to look favorably at you. You might as well just cop out to what we want and be done with it." And I wouldn't do it. And
Because if you didn't do something, you will. That's the thing, though, right? If you generally didn't do it, you're not going to. Obviously, there's times where maybe if there's, you might, if you've got a family to think about and you don't want to be spending that much time in jail. But for instance, if it's a family issue like that, you're not going to say that you're guilty, because you don't want to give that oh, look, he pled guilty, look, he's really guilty. But if you
right.
so yeah, I totally get that, man. Listen, I think we've streamed here for coming up to 3 hours. I think we could end it at that. We spoke about a lot. We spoke about Todd Kohlhepp. We spoke about a lot of different subjects.
Yeah. I'm going to tell Ben. I'll probably talk to Todd this week. So
Yeah, we'll give us an update. Now, what we'll do is, I
yeah.
think what would be good too would be having a second live stream per week where you give us updates on what these serial killers are talking about.
Okay.
If you
Yeah.
would be comfortable with that. Obviously, there's certain things.
Well, Todd is definitely okay with anything that he knows that I wouldn't say anything about him that wasn't true. I wouldn't present him in a worse light than reality places him in. Um, I consider Todd I'm a friend. I'm not someone that I would have in my home, but he's somebody that I speak to him. Like I said, he's one hell of a funny guy. He's an interesting character. What he did was terrible. But and he has no remorse. So I'm not going
That's the thing, and people need to realize this. Sean always says this. Look, this is the most. Sean.
I'll be sure to tell him everybody said hi.
yeah. Tell him we said hi, right? Say that, right? But the thing about it is, you've never once made what you've said. Look, their backgrounds shaped them who they were, but you've never made an excuse. You come from the standpoint that, look, you're speaking to these guys and you're getting this knowledge. Actually, I'm going to say this, Sean, right? You're doing the work that the cops should be doing, because you're actually getting the psychological profile in these. And it shocks me to the core that the cops and the authorities haven't approached you and say, Sean, we're going to put you on a payroll here because we need to know the psychology of these. Now, I know the movies portray it all as fucking all this here shit, psychologically profiling FBI. I'm sure there is that. But realistically speaking, on the ground, man, your knowledge in this here is second to none. And if the feds are watching, listen, all I'm going to say is a good paycheck per month, and you're going to get a wealth of knowledge as long as Sean still comes back on here and talks about it. But listen, that is the end of it.
There's lots of guitars out there, and I need money to buy them all.
That's what I'm saying, man. You're not even on here. You're doing it because you're just generally interested. It's not about money or fame or any of that. Fuck me, man. Like, me and you spoke. I didn't even realize you'd done this. I was telling your life story, and next minute you're like, oh, by the way, I spoke to BTK, right. And I'm like, what? You spoke to BTK? Yeah, I just spoke to Hayden Clark. I spoke to this guy. I was like, they're all serial killers. He's like, yeah, I speak to them on a regular basis. Like, what? He's like, yeah. I was like, it's one day Sean will be writing letters to Decca. There you go. He'll be writing letters to Decca, and Decca will be giving him fucking phone calls and all the rest. But listen, man, it's a pleasure as always. I have to say, ever big up the chat. I love the live chat. Listen, guys, I understand that these aren't popular topics. So there was got a comment the other day, why don't you speak about this? Why don't you speak about that? Because these are the topics to me. I watch the serial killer stuff. I watch MMA. We've created another channel, Serial Killing Minds. Go subscribe to it. The link should be in the description of this video here. If not, it's at Serial Killing Minds. All this content after a year will be put on exclusively to that, all the live streams. And I like doing this. It doesn't matter about if there's 1 million people in or nobody in. This interests me. I get something from it every single time, and I can only thank Sean once again. So that's it, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in. Mad respect to you guys, because you're the ones asking the questions that are stimulating the conversation. Sure, if you can, tell a friend. Copy link the clipboards, send to a friend on Facebook or WhatsApp Messenger. Spreading the word is good. And that's it, guys. Sean, you're a gentleman. Peace out.